Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
Hello, Daniel Holzman, ladies and gentlemen.
Food IQ.
Big new book, Cookbook.
Congratulations. It's a great idea because there are so many fucking questions that so many people have about, like, what is the way to do things? Like, what is better? Like, what is the difference between a cheap knife and an expensive knife? Do I need an expensive knife?
So if you're a chef, anybody that lives in the world of food, you just get, like, you probably get pitched ideas all day long.
Oh,
You're
sure.
an entertainment guy. Well, if you're a chef, you get the, like, what's the best way to cook the chicken?
Right.
What's the best way to salt this? What's the best way to, what kind of pan should I buy?
So do you have a stack of these? Like, here, read.
So that was the idea. I'm like, I got to profit off this. I'm tired of answering these questions for free.
And this hat that you gave me is your LA pizzeria,
Danny Boy's Pizza.
which by the way, LA fucking needs really good pizza because the pizza in LA is a lot of hit or miss.
There are a lot of pizzerias in LA.
And you're in downtown LA? That's a risky move.
You don't even know risky move.
When did you open?
We're in the base, the ground floor of a giant building, like a giant corporate building, and it's just a ghost town. It's like nobody was there.
Is anybody in the corporate building?
For the last 6 months? It's been completely empty. Now people are coming back to work finally. So paying off.
When did
a long game.
When did you open it?
We opened 6 months ago.
Oh no!
Oh yeah, and it was perfect timing though because like COVID
There it
was.
is. Danny
look at
Boy's Pizza.
Oh, there's Adam,
Dude,
handsome
that
guy.
looks like a legit pizza
Real
place.
pizzeria.
I want a fucking piece.
I know.
Of
I
pizza
should have
right
brought
now.
you pizza.
No. It
should've
wouldn't have
brought
been
you
right. I have to be there.
You see that little bubbles on the crust? It's like a whole thing. I want to talk to you. How much time we got? Like 15 minutes?
Much time
All
as
right,
you
we'll
want,
talk
bro.
about that.
That
Oh
looks
yeah, I like that
goddamn
picture.
good. I'll tell you what. I always want to know, like, what is the purpose of wood-fired pizza? Does it make the food taste better? Does it impart like a smoky flavor to the pizza?
It definitely imparts a smoky flavor. It's also hot, right? And like cooking over wood is special. So
Yeah.
you know that because
Yeah.
you're like a wood-fired cooking enthusiast.
I've gotten really into it lately. Yeah. I got one of those
Are
Argentine
you
style
You're grilling
grills.
or barbecuing also, or
I do a lot of stuff. I'm obsessed with cooking meat in particular, but I got one of those Argentine, crank up.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I
Let me-
love cooking over hardwood.
What company did you get it from?
I got it from Sunterra Pro, but I'm having a whole outdoor system installed, like, with brick and mortar and everything,
Yeah.
by a company called Grillworks.
Oh yeah, Ben Grillworks.
Yeah, Grillworks.
Amazing.
They're the best, right? They did the that place that I love, Bazaar Meats in Vegas.
I think that they make some of the most stunningly beautiful grills out there, and they work really, really well. And great restaurants use them.
Yeah.
The only thing that I would say is, there's one piece of the puzzle that I've learned recently from these guys at J&R. J&R make really great grills as well, phenomenal grills, and they've got this fire brick that they line them with. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And the fire brick, it holds the heat in a way that's really interesting. Like that, I'm learning a lot about wood-fired cooking. It's a little bit of an obsession, and I feel like if the fire brick itself, if you can get that hot, that's where the heat comes from, and then the wood becomes the flavor.
Are you a reverse sear guy? Do you like to cook? How do you like to do a steak? We should explain a reverse sear for folks who don't know what cooking is.
Can you explain reverse
Sure.
sear for me? You're cooking it slow and then hitting it at the end?
Yes, you're searing it off. You're cooking it slow I like to get it to an internal temperature of 100 degrees, and then I sear the shit out of the outside of it. Unless it's a thick steak, then I like to bring it to about 120.
And is this like a sous vide situation where you're doing it?
No, I just do it. On the Argentine thing, I just have it cranked up way high. So it's, I have one of those meter probes. I really like those meter probes. So it's a Bluetooth probe. I stick it into the meat, and it shows me always what temperature. And I have 4 of them. So I have 4. Like if I'm cooking 4 different steaks, I have them numbered, and it tells me, where everything is at. And what I love about doing it that way is because since I've been cooking a lot over hardwood, so I'm getting all this smoke from the hardwood, so it's like smoky steak. It's fantastic. And then at the end, I sear the shit out of it.
I feel like there are a lot of great ways to cook a steak.
Yeah.
And, for a bigger piece of meat, that reverse sear, like a real thick piece of meat, a reverse sear might be the best way. But for a thinner steak, maybe it's not necessary, or maybe I don't love it. But low and slow until you got almost like prime rib texture, and then searing the outside's phenomenal.
Yeah.
There's something about cooking that as a chef it feels like cheating sometimes. Like people use the sous vide, you put the probe in there, and it's like it's not too easy, but it feels like you don't get the part of it is the like I made this over fire. I just threw it in the fire. And you ever throw it right on the coals?
I have not.
You've
I've
never
seen
done
people do it, cowboy style, right? That's what they call it.
I work for this French guy, Laurent Monrique, and he basically was like, we were cooking these quails, and the quails were dripping fat into the fire, and the fire was flaming up, and it was like starting to burn the skin, and he's like, put it in the fire, and we're like, what the fuck is this guy's an idiot? Like, you can put it in the fire, it's gonna burn. Like, what's wrong with him? Like, in France, heat doesn't work the same way, and he just like kicked the grill, knocked the quail into the fire, and it smothered the fire because the oxygen wasn't there to burn, and it like made a perfect crispy skin, wasn't burnt at all. And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. This guy's the he's the Yoda of whatever. So now I've got into that, and people freak out. It's definitely not the best way, in my opinion, to cook a steak. But if you want to impress your friends, you got a wood fire. A dry rub stops it from getting like gritty or whatever. You throw the steak right on the coals and people freak out. They think you're going to ruin dinner, and then it comes out perfectly crispy. It's cool.
You have to, when you do it that way, do you have to brush off the ash or anything?
So like if you think about your coals burning, I usually take like a wet towel and I throw them down just to like get any of the ash that's sitting on. What's that? There's like crazy lights.
Oh, there's a shooting star in the ceiling.
I thought that might have been like a near miss from your comment. I've been listening to your podcast now. I'm like freaking out, dude.
About comments?
I'm like,
yeah.
I'm just like
Randall
any
Carlson?
day. Yeah, that guy, dude.
He freaks me out too.
The last 3 weeks, I'm like, man, what am I supposed to talk to you about? The Earth's about to end, and I'm like, yeah, this is how you cook a steak. In the meantime,
well, in the meantime, we have to eat
while you're important.
At it. Yeah, while you're at it. So the wet cloth takes some of the excess ash that's sitting on the top of the coals? I
think the two tricks are, first is I like to put a dry rub, like some sort of a spice rub on the outside of the steak.
What do you like to use?
I like, depending if you want to go in an Italian direction, maybe fennel seed helps. I like coriander seed if you like maybe a little bit more of a Middle Eastern kind of flavor, maybe coriander seed. Black pepper if you just want to do black pepper and salt, like traditional barbecue 50-50 blend.
That's generally what I do.
That works great. Just something to be a little bit gritty, because then if you do get a little ash, maybe you mistake the texture.
I see.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I take a wet towel, I throw it on the, so you burn your fire down till you got coals. Throw a wet towel on there, just to kind of get any errant ash off. Then you put the steak right on there, and you'll see what happens. The flames will come up around the steak, but the steak itself is protected. And you just gotta be patient. You sit it there. You don't flip it. Don't mess with it, because as soon as you pick it up, what happens is that the fat that's rendering off the steak, as soon as it gets any oxygen, it's going to ignite and it will burn the shit out of your steak. It's a nightmare. So as long as you are patient, you don't pick it up, and then you just flip it once, wait your time, and pull it off. It'll be beautifully golden brown. Try it.
I will try it. Someone explained to me that steel and cast iron, they're much better conductors of heat than coals. And that if you would think that laying something down over the coal would make it cook quicker, but that's not necessarily the case.
I think that's true. I mean, I'm not like a scientist guy. I'm not a scientist, Joe. But
whenever you say I'm not a scientist guy,
I'm not a scientist guy. I'm not a chef guy. But yeah, steel obviously transmits heat, which is why it cools down quickly as well, right? So if you got a thin pan, you throw a steak in there, the heat gets sucked out right away. Which
leads me to this. Do you prefer cast iron or do you prefer carbon steel?
Joe, it's for $35. You go
it's in the book.
Food IQ.
It's in the book,
go to www. So they're just different, right? So like cast iron is thicker, right? Traditionally thicker. I don't know what the specific heat of cast iron versus carbon steel is. So like that would be the scientific term for how much energy it is going to hold per, joule of heat or whatever it is, the scientific term for it. But basically you're saying like there's a certain amount of energy that's held in the pan that's going to get transferred into the meat. And the more energy that's in there, the longer it's going to stay hot, even though you put a cold piece of meat on it. So like you get a thick cast iron pan, you heat it up in the oven or whatever it is over the flame it might take 10 minutes to heat up, but then it stays hot when your steak goes in there. Steel pans tend to be a little thinner. So even if they're going to hold a lot of energy, they're just not as much mass of hot steel, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. That does make sense.
I think they're pretty much they're similar. Like I worked at a really fancy French fish restaurant, and they used steel pans for searing the fish. And part of that is also that you can, like the problem with the cast iron pan, if it's too hot or too cold, you're kind of out of luck. Like there's no heating it up fast.
Right.
Whereas a steel pan, if it's a little thicker, it'll react to the flame below and transfer that heat maybe so you can heat it up quickly if it's a little hot or cool it down.
So it's just a time thing. It's not a quality of cooking thing.
I think it's a time thing and the type of thing you're trying to cook. Like a piece of fish maybe is 6 ounces, and it only takes so much energy out of the pan to crisp up before it cools down. Because we've all done the thing where you throw a piece of chicken or something in a pan, and it sticks. It gets like wet, and all the heat, the energy gets pulled out of the pan, and like it'll crackle for a second. Mushrooms are a great example. It's like you're like, I'm going to sear these mushrooms. You throw them in, and then it's just like a pool of water, like boiling. And that's because the heat in the pan gets sucked out, and then there's not enough energy to boil off the moisture that's getting pulled out of the mushrooms, and you get boiled mushrooms, which are delicious, luckily. But boiled steak isn't as great.
Yeah, boiled steak with the boiled mushrooms.
Yeah,
You're kind of fucking everything up.
Not as great. So therefore, if you get that thick cast iron pan, you get it hot, you're going to stay hot throughout the cooking process, which is great. Steak, I want a nice, crispy, whatever it is, thick. But if I do a piece of chicken in there, maybe it burns, or maybe the skin's overly crispy. So,
right. Do you have a specific way that you prefer to cook steak? Like, do you have a method? Like, if Danny's got a go-to method, I give you a 2-pound cowboy ribeye.
So that's what I feel like. What happens is depends upon the piece of meat. That's what's so beautiful about a cow's got all these different pieces, and they all need a little bit of different cooking style. I mean, when you cook a ribeye, you don't cook it the same way as you cook a New York steak. Maybe a ribeye's got, if you think about a ribeye and a New York steak are coming right off the back strap, and a cow. I mean, where from an anatomy perspective where it's coming from. Mm-hmm. So it's coming from like that strip of your back, and you've got, if you feel your chest, you've got the ribs up tops, and they wrap around to the back, and that's where the ribeye is. So like the New York steak is coming from below where there's no ribs attached, but it's really the same strip of meat, right? So it's very, very similar. Just that the ribeye has all that internal kind of like thicker pieces of fat in there. So maybe cooking that reverse sear where you're slowly heating it up and then letting that fat melt, because you don't want a cold hunk of, like, beef fat melts at a high temperature. It's got a really waxy texture. So you eat like cold beef fat in your steak, it's not going to be great. Whereas a New York steak, I like it more on the rare side, and I wouldn't mind even a thick steak, cooking it a little bit faster, having it maybe just be warm in the center. So I think it really depends on the steak, man. Like,
do you tend to cook over fire, or do you sometimes cook a steak just on a cast iron, if it's a thinner steak? So
I grew up in New York City. In the book, we talk a lot about cooking under the broiler in your house. I think it's like a lesser utilized piece of kitchen equipment. And I grew up in New York City where you didn't really have an outdoor space. You didn't have fire. So moving out to Los Angeles, being able to cook over the fire, it's like an obsession. It's like all I want to do, because you didn't get that. But you can definitely cook great steak, in a frying pan for sure. And like, classic French technique with you throw butter and herbs and garlic in there at the end, and maybe you do a pan roast where you cook it over the fire and you throw it in the oven. Like, that's a delicious way to cook a steak. The fire adds just that extra. Although I always find this funny. When you grill or you barbecue, it's like you don't really taste the smoke yourself. And then the next day you go to eat the leftovers and it's like, holy shit, this thing smells like an ashtray. It's amazing how much smoke is on there.
Right.
I feel like you get quickly desensitized to the smoke yourself.
Because you're just accustomed to smelling it while you're cooking it?
I mean, think about it. Like, haven't you had that experience? Like, you cook barbecue or you cook some steak, you grill it, and then you eat it, and it doesn't really taste smoky. But then if you taste someone else that's making the same thing, it really you get that taste. I think
Well, I think that's a function of the olfactory senses, because your nose is meant to detect changes in smells. That's why you ever drive through Pennsylvania, the farm country, it smells like my parents used to live in Harrisburg. When I used to go to visit them, I used to drive through farm country, and it just smells like fucking death. Yeah. It smells so bad, but the people that live there don't smell it at all, because your nose sort of detects changes in smell more than it detects
the paper factory. You're like, how could you ever live here?
Right.
I've never stayed long enough to get desensitized, but I hear.
Yeah. So maybe that's the same thing with cooking over the smoke.
I think you're probably right.
But I don't know. I taste the difference. And when I got really into it, once I got this Argentine style grill and I started cooking over hardwood, I'm like, I mean, regular steaks are great, but cooking a steak over fire, over just wood, there's something better. Like coal's great, like charcoal, lump charcoal's great, but next level's actual wood.
So I don't know. Over Christmas 2 years ago, I've always loved to weld. I've been like a welder. It's been fun for me.
I've seen your grills. They're fucking top notch, man. They're really dope.
So, thank you. I'm really, really proud. It's like it's like one of the things I'm really proud of. I hired a welding instructor because I was like, I'm really terrible at this. I'm self-taught. I hired a welding instructor. I spent a whole day with him, and then I ordered 3,000 pounds of steel. I called the steel yard, and the guy's like, I was like, oh, come pick it up, man. What are you talking about? He's like, what kind of truck you got? I was like, I was just so shamed. I was like, man, I got a Chevy truck. Like, what are you talking about? I can throw it in the back. And he's like,
no.
Like, how many pounds is it rated for? I was like, dude, this guy's killing me. I was like, I'm supposed to know this. So I looked up in the manual, and I'm like, oh, I can't put that steel on my truck.
Yeah, you can't even drag it.
No chance. So they delivered it to my house, and they're like, classic, like curbside only. It's like curbside only.
Yeah, well, it's so big. They can't be responsible for moving that thing around,
for $20, he was responsible. I was like, yeah, I'll give you $20 to carry this shit inside. Like,
really?
Yes, 100%. $20. I gave
That's it?
I might have given him I gave him $20 flat.
So you made a good deal, Danny.
I helped.
But yeah, that's the thing out here is offset smokers. Texas is famous for offset smokers and barbecue. And that's the next thing I'm going to do. I'm going to get an offset smoker and start grilling on the firebox and doing the reverse sear inside the...
So I came I came out here a day early because thank you. You flew me out here. It's really, really kind, generous.
My pleasure.
Excited to be out here. I'd been out to Austin one time before. And it's like the barbecue is just legendary.
It's pretty awesome.
And so the last time I was here, I stood in line at Le Barbecue. And I never liked brisket in my life. Like, I'm a Jew from New York. Like, brisket was like my aunt made brisket. Just, I don't know if like we're supposed to love the brisket, but it just wasn't that great. I'm sorry. She doesn't listen to you. I hope so. I hope not.
I doubt she does.
Not. Although you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. A lot of people listen to you, so you just never know. My aunt might be really angry at me right now. She and I bit into that brisket at Le Barbecue after 2 hours, and it was like a life-changing experience. It was like fat held together by just a little bit of meat, and I never had anything like that. It was so good.
They know what the fuck they're doing out here, and apparently the history of it, as explained to me by my friend Adam Curry, is that it was German settlers that came in here like way back in the day, and they were, they smoked meat. They smoked a lot of sausages and smoked a lot of meat, and something, in this area, how like Italian food on the East Coast is very different than Italian food in Italy. Well, that's the German food in Texas became very different than the smoked meat that they would cook in Germany, and they developed with all the spices and the sauces that they use out here and the rubs, and they just developed this amazing method with using those big old barrel smokers.
Wow. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, that's the root of it all. I actually ate at the Salt Lick this past weekend, which is
out
out
went down
in Driftwood.
There.
Yeah.
That
Have you
place,
been?
I mean, that
Legendary.
grill is so cool.
It's amazing.
It's just so cool.
That place is amazing. First of all, it's so big, When you go there, you can't believe how many people are eating there.
Juggernaut. They're
It's
just making
huge.
so much. I mean, they're responsible for like wiping out half the cattle.
There's a lot of cows out here, fortunately. But the fucking barbecue is sensational. Their burnt ends, oh my God, they're so good. Everything was good. They have bison ribs too. They were fantastic.
I was talking to my buddy moved out here, and he's like telling me, you know, you got to go here. This is my favorite place. And I'm a chef, so people get a little bit self-conscious when I prefer something they didn't like. And I'm like, guys, you got to understand, like, the barbecue out here, it's all at like a 99%. It's all so good. It's the best barbecue in the world, better than anything else I've ever had. This one just happens to be like 99.5%. It's like a little bit better. So like I happen to prefer this one, but like don't feel bad, man. Yours is great too.
There's so many good spots out here. You can't go wrong with La Barbecue though. They're amazing. I had that years and years ago. It was fantastic.
I had it yesterday again. So like
okay.
So I
Doubled up.
went to Terry
Black's.
Terry Black's, you know, and I had a meal in the morning, and because they open 30 minutes before everybody else. They're a 24-hour operation. I was in the smoke. That's the other thing. You can go into their smokehouse and talk to them, and the guy's like, you know, is like tweaking out.
He'll show you the briskets.
Yeah, he opened it up. Oh, so cool, man. It was so cool. And then I just bang. I went right over to what's like called Wathens or what's it called? It's like there are two that are the most popular right now. It's called
Franklin.
No, it's down the block from Franklin's. It's such a cool vibe. There's like a little truck outside, you know, drinking beers online.
Oh, okay.
Family picnicking. You got to help me out, bud. I need help.
Starts with a W?
Yeah, it starts with a W. It's got a great name.
What Terry Black's does better than anybody is beef ribs. Their beef ribs are fucking insane. And you pick up the bone and it just slides right off the beef rib.
I've never been to Franklin, you know, but I use his book. That's the book.
Franklin's awesome too. I've had his brisket. It's insane.
So when I want to barbecue at home, I just follow the steps from the Franklin barbecue book. And
Aaron
like
has a bunch of good videos online too. He's got some YouTube tutorials. He shows like how to tend to an offset grill and the whole deal.
His rib recipe, like all those recipes, there are very few cookbooks like this, like where if you follow a recipe, you get the result like you would get at the restaurant, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's not an easy recipe though. It's like, you know, wake up at 4 a.m.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, it's a 12-hour cook at least, right?
So I didn't do an offset. I did the firebox below. And I did that because, you know, first of all, I spent like a month and a half designing this grill. I mean, obsessing online, all the different types.
Can we see? Do you have images
I
for
think
Jamie?
I sent you like videos and pictures of this thing.
Did you get it, Jamie, or did I get it? I think I got it. I'll forward. I can
forward it to you as well.
I'll do it because I got it right here. Give me 1 second. But go ahead.
So basically, like, you know, I obsessed over. There are these amazing bread baking ovens in India that the way that they funnel the smoke from below allows them to be extremely even, you know? And I don't know. I dorked out on it. It's like, you know, I get very excited about something. I want to make the best of it. You're making it one time. It's 3,000 pounds, so you're not making it again. And I ultimately screwed up like we all do. But I ended up saying, you know, I want to have something that's a little more versatile than just a grill that I can only do one type of barbecue on. Mm-hmm. So I put the fired below with the idea that I can get it raging hot. I mean, I can get this thing up to like 800 degrees and I can do classic pizza or I can do bread baking. And it's got stones that I can slide in and out of it. So it's a little bit more versatile. Getting the heat to be consistent when the fire's below is a challenge, but you can do it. You can do it. You can get around that. What
is the benefit of doing that versus an offset?
Just because you can then, so I love to, this is my latest kind of like obsession with this thing is I like to get a fire going, cook on the grill right above the fire and then close the door. So it's like a hybrid smoke roast, like a hotter, like barbecue, like you're barbecuing at whatever it is, you know, 100 and instead of like a 275, you're barbecuing like 550 for a grilled steak because you get that intense smoke flavor, but you also get a more even like oven heat around the whole thing. That for me is really special.
And so, have you experimented with offsets and done it this way, and you just decided that?
I've definitely I've smoked meat on an offset. Like, you got me like real excited. I also drank a coffee before this. I'm like, I want to talk all about
There's
this.
more coffee right here if you want some. Oh, and thank you very much for this whiskey. It looks awesome.
This is apple brandy from America's oldest distillery.
Oh, wow.
In New Jersey.
America's oldest distillery is in New Jersey? How's that possible?
So this is this thing that I'm like, I don't have anything to do with these guys. I don't know them. I just happen to like apple. And so if you look at the price, I left the price on the top.
I don't think it's true. I think Buffalo Trace is the oldest. Buffalo Trace was around before America. They're from 1773.
Okay, so you're probably right. And
I think
this might be the oldest distillery in New Jersey.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
But I was born in New Jersey, and
I was too.
Where were you born?
Newark.
Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Wow. What a lovely town now.
It's a mess.
It's moved. So you must be. That's why you got tough. You had to get
No,
tough.
I got out when I was really young.
Yeah.
I moved out when I was 7, but I moved back when I was 24.
Wow.
Yeah, I moved back for about 6 months because my grandparents stayed there.
One of the greatest pizzerias in America is in Newark right now.
Oh, Newark has some amazing
phenomenal
Italian food. Back in the day, especially, they had incredible bread, like these bakeries where my grandparents would go walk down the street and buy bread.
Wow.
It was a big Italian neighborhood.
So this is apple brandy, which Applejack. So in France they call it Calvados, right? They make brandy out of apples. It's very delicious. It tastes like reminiscent of the apples. You can taste it, but it's
Should we
great
have a little
whiskey.
touch?
Yeah, let's have a taste. You know.
Have a little touch.
Although I talked to a buddy of mine that was on your show, and Tiller Russell,
Oh, okay.
and incredible director. And I was like, yeah, man, you gotta give me some advice. You know, what I do? He's like, just stay away from the booze.
Why did he didn't get liquored
He's like,
up?
stay away from the booze and whatever you do. He's like, the CBD isn't just CBD.
It
Stay
is.
away
That's
from
not
it.
true. Tiller's lying.
He's like, yo. He's like, just.
It smells great.
He's like, you'll lose sight of.
Nah, you'll be fine, dude. You're a goddamn
I'm a chef,
professional.
man. I've been drinking.
Yeah, that's the
since...
thing about chefs, right? Cheers, sir.
Thanks.
The thing about chefs is they fucking party hard.
It's sometimes a little scary.
I didn't know that until I met Bourdain. Whew. What's up, Jamie?
I was looking up the history, Joe. It's America's oldest distiller.
What is the year?
It says 300 years.
What? 1698. Jesus Christ. So it is older.
Wow.
It's older by almost 100 fucking years. That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wild.
I just
But
didn't want to
maybe
disagree because I didn't actually
Buffalo
know.
Trace is the oldest whiskey distillery? Like, what is this? What is this? This is brandy, right?
Yeah, it's an apple
Applejack
brandy.
is what it's
Is
called,
there a
so.
difference?
Yeah, well, whiskey is made from grain, and
Right.
apple brandy is made from fruit.
That's interesting. Wow.
I feel like it doesn't get its due. I don't know anything about these guys. Like, I'm worried. I was like, man, I'm going to go on this show. I'm going to like say, and then it's going to turn out these guys have some like sordid past. I'm going to get in all kinds of trouble. All I'm saying is, I think it's delicious. I think that apple brandy is really delicious, and it's inexpensive. Like, the bourbons these days are so great, but they're pricey as hell, man.
Really old stuff is, for sure.
And this stuff is like, this is their fanciest one. It's 7.5 years aged. It's like
really
$40,
good.
man.
It's fucking really good.
It's
Just
cheap.
the
It's
distinction
delicious.
for Buffalo Trace, just for
Oh,
clarity.
oldest continually operating distillery. Oh, so that place must have like closed down and then rereopened.
Yeah, that
They took
whole,
a day off.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe in the
fucked up.
30s, the 20s. It was Josephus Daniels that started that whole prohibition thing.
Buffalo Trace had an exemption during the whole prohibition. They operated and made whiskey for medicinal purposes.
Is that, I heard you made is that your...
Yes, that's Buffalo Trace and I worked together with Fight for the Forgotten, and they developed like a special blend that's just for me. A special like they gave me a bunch of things to try, and I chose one, and that's the one that they bottled up. So we have a giant jug of it over there.
I just, Buffalo Trace is one of my favorites. I love
They're
it.
awesome.
And it's also fairly priced, which is, for me, it's
Yes.
important. It's like, man, $1,000 bottle of whiskey, like, who am I?
The
I'm
people
trying
that
to
are
drink
behind it,
you
too,
know?
they're rock solid. They're rock solid folks.
But I've been fortunate enough to get a lot of get to go to France and make wine, or go here and make this, and it's very funny to be like, oh, and you're gonna make this. I'm like, this is paint by numbers. I'm not making this. I'm not making this whiskey. Like, let's be honest.
Making whiskey and making wine. I mean, the people that wind up doing that is a fucking labor of love. I mean, because the amount of time and effort involved. First of all, like here, like for example, this brandy, this is 7.5 years old.
Yeah.
So this has to sit in a cask for 7.5 years before they bottle it.
I mean, that's a great business model. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, I got this great idea. I just need $100,000 in cash.
And I'll see you in a
And like
decade.
10 years, if it comes out right.
That's a Buffalo Trace thing too. Those are all 8 years old. Every
But that's
one of
why
those.
all these young distilleries are starting with gin. Because they're like,
Yes.
we can put out our gin right away. That'll hit our P&L, and we can start
Yeah.
some cash flow while we're waiting for the stuff that needs to age.
Or tequila or vodka, right? Those are things that don't necessarily have to be aged. Does tequila have to be aged?
Tequila doesn't, and vodka. A lot of those guys are just like buying medical grade, ethanol and putting a label on there, and it's great. They really are. It's really phenomenal. You can do that.
You know what I heard?
You would be so rich. Oh, you already are. But if you weren't already rich, we could do that together. I'll get the booze. You put your label on there.
Well, as long as it would have to be good, and I'm not. Well, I actually do like vodka martinis, but I like them extra dirty. So what I'm having is like a lot of olive juice and the liquor. I love those. I feel like I'm fucking James Bond when I drink them. You know what I'm saying?
When you start liking gin is when you got to worry about yourself. That's like
why?
Because it's like if you like the flavor of gin, there's alcoholism at you're like maybe just barely holding it at bay.
I don't know if I've ever had gin.
You've had gin. You've had a gin and tonic. You've had a tank. You've had
right.
tank and tonic in your day. Come on, you've been
You're
at that
right.
bar.
I have had a gin and tonic. Yes, I have. But I don't know if I could not like tell you what gin tastes like. Like if you give me a glass of vodka, I know what vodka. Whiskey, obviously, I'm a big whiskey drinker.
Gin tastes like juniper berries, right? Juniper berries like juniper, isn't it? Juniper berries, yeah.
Juniper berries. Juniper is the thing that fucks everybody up in Austin.
Really?
Yeah, that's the allergy that everybody has. They call cedar fever. It's actually juniper that they're allergic to. I don't know if it's in the cedar family or what the deal is, but that's what everybody tweaks about.
I love the way I said that. I was like, oh, of course, it tastes like juniper. You're like, oh, yeah, because I know what juniper, I'm constantly tasting juniper.
That's the only reason why I know about junipers is because everybody I don't get allergies to the shit out here, but some people like my wife gets it, and some people get it bad out here. It's weird, this town.
I was getting, so I had like adult onset allergies, and they got worse and worse and worse. So I started getting shots, and it's amazing. It's fixed me.
Really?
I went to an allergist in L.A.
What were you getting allergies for?
It started out with like hay fevery normally stuff, and then it moved into stone fruit. I was eating cherries. I may or may not have been smoking marijuana at the time, and I was eating these cherries, and my mouth started to tingle, and I was like, I don't know what I did. I had to pull. I was like, this is not healthy.
You call them stone fruit?
Stone fruit, like anything with a stone pit, like a starts with cherries early in the season, then peaches and plums have that rock hard pit.
Would an
That's a
avocado
stone fruit.
count as that too? Because it's kind of a fruit.
Man, you're so far ahead of me. I have no idea. It's a fruit, but I don't know if that's traditionally stone fruit. I don't think so.
I've been on this wacky diet since January, where mostly what I eat is meat. I just eat meat and fruit. I don't eat any bread. I don't eat any pasta. And I've only cheated a couple of times. I had like a bowl of ramen once, and I had a cheeseburger with a bun on it.
Is that? I mean, what was the goal?
The goal is for me. I don't know what it is about eating pasta and bread. First of all, I fucking love it. I love pizza. I love bread. I love a meatball sub. I love pasta, but I bloat. My fucking gut gets fat. It grows. I gain weight, and it doesn't matter how hard I train.
You look like an Eastern European man.
I look like me.
Yeah, I look like me.
But it all goes to my gut.
Yeah.
But when I stop eating like that, it goes.
Yeah, it's called a beer belly.
Yeah. But I feel better. Like my joints feel better when I eat like this. I have more energy.
My brother's been trying to get me to go gluten free because he's the same thing. He's like,
bro, you own a fucking pizzeria.
I know it's not happening. It's not. Although we do make a great gluten free pizza. I got to tell you, I'm really proud of it.
What do you use for the?
So my buddy Vincent Rotolo's got this pizzeria called Good Pie in Vegas, and he won the.
I've heard of that place.
The world championship for pizza. It's like a pizza fan. People get really into it.
Really? Where is Good Pie? Where's it located?
It's man, this is like that opportunity. He's going to be.
Well, we'll find out.
You got to find out
Google
where it is.
It's probably in one of the casinos.
There's actually a great barbecue place right across the street. One of the best barbecue places outside of Texas.
What's
that?
that?
Standalone. I think it's downtown.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
It's not
in the whole downtown area.
Yeah, that new strip that's just being really popularized.
Nice.
It's cool.
There it is.
Good Pie.
Good Pie. Pizza. That's a nice area. That's a fun area of Vegas. That's like a neighborhood.
It's such a cool. I've been about to Vegas hanging out with him because he really helped me, with this pizzeria. and I've been going out there, and I don't even go to the Strip. I don't even go to the casinos. I'm like, I want to visit. It's cool.
I fucking love a great pizza. I really do.
But
I
he
had a
won with
couple-
his gluten-free. That was his thing. So
shit.
So he won this amazing, Italian pizza competition with his gluten-free pizza. And
So he won the overall with the gluten-free, or did he win the gluten-free?
I feel like there's somebody out there that should Google this. I don't know.
Yeah, because I have a hard time
he probably
believing
didn't win
that
the overall.
gluten-free beat the regular nasty for you pizza.
But he helped me out with my recipe, and now I'm, So I stole his recipe.
Well, that's nice
Sorry,
of him.
Vincent.
Very nice of him. And so, how your place has been open for 6 months? How long have you been making pizza for? Were you making it before then?
I've worked in restaurants and been the chef of restaurants that had pizza programs. So I've definitely been pizza adjacent. But the thing about it is, until you live and die day in and day out and do it, and it's your responsibility to build it, you don't really. So this was like, I want to learn how to make pizza. About 3 years ago, I went out to Vegas and I started asking Vincent questions. I got like 4 friends all named Vincent that are pizza analysts. All of them are named Vincent.
I got an uncle named Vincent. Don't
Yeah,
worry
he probably
about
makes pizza too. The guy across. I grew up on 83rd Street in First, and right across the street was Gino's Pizza, and the guy that worked there, Vincent. I asked Vincent. I kept on asking me these questions, and he was like, "Yo, man, you got to talk to this guy, John Arena. This guy is he's the Pizza Yoda." And anytime I would start asking people like questions that got into like the science of pizza and really you needed to know, always pointed back, you got to talk to this guy, John Arena. So Vincent hooked me up, and he takes you on as an apprentice. Like, he wants to make sure you're going to respect the craft before he starts talking to you, because so many chefs are like disrespect what goes into making pizza great.
Really? Why do you think that is?
I think because we don't necessarily appreciate how difficult it is, the science and the art and the craft that goes into it. And we think like, yo, man, I make a great chicken. I can make a great this. I'm a chef. I can do that. No problem. Like, that's just pizza. And then you start making pizza and you realize like, no, it's not just pizza. If you want to make great pizza, it's a specialty. You have to be a great baker. And then it's really, really deserves a lot of respect.
I would just say that it would be. I was going to say that rather. That would be akin to baking, or being a great pastry chef or something like that.
So this guy John Arena, he's the guy that can explain and knows the history of it. But the baker was the brewmaster, was the pizzaiola in the town when before that those were separate jobs. Like, it is very much being a baker. And that's a whole amazing art form, and there's incredible advances happening in the world of baking now, even though it's like one of the oldest things. People have been baking bread for thousands and thousands of years. In the last 20 years, people have changed the whole game. It's amazing what's going on.
Well, it's just cooking is so exciting now. I think what's going on is, you have this incredible history of cooking, right? But now what you have is a lot of people sharing stuff online. And I follow probably like 30 or 40 cooks and chefs online, and there's a bunch of pages that have like these very quickly edited almost like a 1 minute cooking show of how to put together a great meal or a great dish. And it's exciting, and I think it's because of the cooking shows on television and the cooking shows on the internet and all these small little shows that are on TikTok, and for me it's Instagram that I watch. It's real exciting because it's making people enthusiastic about cooking, and I think it's introducing the option of becoming a cook, becoming a chef to a lot of people out there.
I feel like today more people want to cook than have ever before, and fewer people know how to cook than ever before. Like,
really?
In the 50s, folks stopped cooking. Between microwave cooking and more people entering the workforce, less time. Advertising really made it feel like, you should be guilty for taking time to cook, and you should really just, microwave your dinner. Fast food restaurants came into the equation, and people started trading home cooked meals for ordering in and going out. And so cooking is handed down from generation to generation. It's a hands-on learning experience. And so if your parents or the folks that you would learn from don't know how to cook, you're not going to learn how to cook. And so when that stopped in the 1950s, really after World War II, we lost kind of 3 generations of institutional knowledge. And when you lose that knowledge, there's no one to teach you how to cook. And then all of a sudden the internet comes around. It's like, oh, here's a new opportunity to spread communicate these techniques and this learning. And so more people are now interested, and they're starting to learn. They're looking for resources. It's cool. That was, that was the whole idea of this cookbook, was like, there's so much bullshit out there. So many people want to make their job seem interesting, and overcomplicate stuff. And so many people are intimidated because you start learning how to cook and it's like, if it's not great, it's garbage. And then if you really break it down though, it's pretty straightforward and simple. Like you learn a few techniques and it goes so far. And it's like you give yourself the greatest gift and your family the greatest gift you can ever give. Like through the pandemic, I felt bad. My buddy Daniel Sharp was moving. He got stuck with me. He was supposed to go he was like on a 3-month Asia vacation, and it was like, can I just like crash with you for a couple weeks? And I was like, his itinerary just got shut down. So he got stuck with me. He's a chef. He's one of my best friends, and we were just eating it up. We would go to the supermarket. We'd be like, yo, you can only go to the supermarket once a week, once every 2 weeks. We're going to get enough food. And like 3 days later, we're like, all right, we ate all that. Go back. Let's start again. We were just cooking amazing, amazing meals. And then everybody's angry at us. They're like, yo, man, we're eating like the last box of macaroni and cheese that we got to I'm like, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm eating
Were they angry because you were showing it to them?
Oh, yeah. My Instagram was like, look at these lobsters that we just did like fried Chinese lobster with black bean sauce. It's incredible. And I was writing this. So like the cookbook was a pandemic project where it was like, so I was testing out the recipes and writing the recipes for the book. So it was like, we had to cook, all the whole time. It was really fun. It was a fun time. I don't want to say that. It was a difficult time for a lot of people, and I ate well.
Do you think that people starting out, like if you've really never had any experience cooking, do you think that a culinary school or some sort of a class is the way to go? Or do you think you should just start simply and slow from a book or an online tutorial?
I was talking to my buddy Kyle. Oh, man. So Kyle came down here with me. I was like, yo, I'm going to Austin. I'm going to be there a day early. I'm going to be eating barbecue. You should come down here and let's have some fun. And he came down here. He's got a couple of restaurants up in San Francisco Bay Area. He's an amazing chef, and he's a great travel buddy. And I was just yesterday, I was like, yo, man, talk to me about culinary school. Like, what do you think? What's our opinion about that? Like, because I went to culinary school. I dropped out. I didn't make it through. He went to culinary school. If you want to be a chef, I don't think culinary school is necessarily the best route. If you want to be a chef of an independent restaurant, if you want to work if you want to be a home cook, there's a lot to learn quickly from culinary school. I think that's like as a non-matriculated kind of class by class. That's a great opportunity. Taking some cooking classes as a home cook, you learn a lot. If you want to be a chef, it's a hands-on experience in the restaurant that's going to get you there. But I think there's a lot. I think there's definitely a use for taking cooking classes as a home cook.
You're not the only one who's told me this. That sentiment has been echoed by a lot of great chefs that I've talked to. Said the same thing.
My problem is also though, there are a lot of culinary jobs out there, and think about all the hotels and all the cruise ships and all the corporate cafeterias. There's so many culinary jobs out there, and if that's a goal, if you want to work in one of those jobs, then culinary school can be a great road to give you the needed, that can be a great route to get one of those jobs. If you want to have a standalone restaurant, maybe something more avant-garde, maybe something where you're a little more creative, then culinary school might not get you there, and it can put you at a disadvantage because you get, unless you I was very lucky. I got a full scholarship. The James Beard Foundation gave me a full scholarship to go to culinary school, and so it worked out for me. But for so many folks, like you go to culinary school, you come out with big debt, and then you can't afford to take a job at a restaurant that's paying minimum wage because you need to pay back that loan.
So if you get a job at a restaurant, the restaurant will essentially give you a task, and then if you show effort and show that you have work ethic and show that you're really interested, they'll slowly train you to learn new techniques and cook things?
I guess this gets into like a whole nother issue that's going on right now with the labor laws and how they've really kind of changed the way that people in restaurants learn how to cook and cooks come up in the business. So I kind of came up as the last of the world where the apprentice system was still kind of a piece of the puzzle, if that makes sense. So I went and worked at La Bernadette, super fancy French restaurant. I was like, 15 years old, 14 years old.
Really?
And his chef was like, I can't pay you. You're not legal to work, but you can come and work for free.
So did you always know that you wanted to be a chef?
I love to cook. And
When did you start?
I started when I was very young. I get pictures of cooking with my mom, very, very young. And she kind of supported me in that. So we had, like making pasta in the kitchen and hanging the noodles off the back of chairs and having, she was very, very supportive of my interest. When I was 13 years old, I got a job delivering pizza at the pizzeria across the street, Gino's Pizza, Vincent.
How'd you deliver them? On a bike?
I walking, and I had a harmonica. I would play the harmonica. I thought I was the coolest kid in the world. It was not cool. Meanwhile, my partner Michael, who I ended up opening a restaurant with, Michael's, we should talk about him too. This guy's he's a very cool guy, very inspirational. He was a cool kid. He was delivering on rollerblades, making twice the tips, quick. He's getting around, But delivering pizzas, and then I was working at this Mexican restaurant, San Melita's. I was delivering Mexican food, and I was like, man, these guys in the kitchen are so cool. Like, got tattoos and the fire, and like everybody says, yes, chef. And, I was really attracted to the kitchen, and I started spending time in the kitchen, and I was working at this vegan restaurant. Mike was delivering. He was delivering vegan food and other things on his rollerblades. He was like
Other
14
things.
years old. Yeah, it was like
Selling
a
weed.
green machine selling weed. He was like,
Son of a bitch.
you just order your like your vegan 7-layer dip, and you get a bag of. At the time, it was like, I don't know. It was like the first time that they had chronic. They called it chronic. It's like fresh and green. This I was in love with this girl. She was amazing. My best friend at the time. And her father was the maitre d' of this fancy French restaurant. He came in, and I was working in the kitchen because whenever I wasn't delivering, I was in the kitchen. I loved it. I was like learning everything I could. And the chef had just cut herself, she like just cut herself. And she had to leave, and they were like, we got to close the restaurant. And I was like, there's like 2 more dishes to go out. And he came in, he was like, I was the only guy in the kitchen. It was like, busy, restaurant's full. He's like 14-year-old kid, friend of his daughter's. He's like, you're the chef here? And I'm like, yeah, like absolutely. He's like, you should come. I work at this, fancy French restaurant. You should meet the chef. And he got me an interview, and I went and worked there. So like 15, 14 years old, I go to this fancy French restaurant. I had no idea, after school. And the chef meets me, and he's like, he's late. He's like, you're lucky because I was taking a haircut, because otherwise you would be fired already. I was like, oh my God, I have no idea what's going on. And he's like, but you can come and you can watch. Like, you can't touch anything. You can watch after school on Wednesdays. You come, and on weekends. I started working there, and it was fun, man. It was super cool.
What kind of tasks did they have you do initially?
The first job was I got to bring the fish from the refrigerator to the guy that was going to cook the fish. Like, I could carry it across the kitchen. And then I got to clean calamari. My dad called me the calamari kid. He was like, he had a whole song for me. I was like the squid kid. I remember one time I went in, and I was like, the chef was like, the calamari, some of it has gone bad. I need you to smell every piece. And I walked in, and he's like, I was like, chef, I smelled every piece of calamari. He's like, I know. Look in the mirror. And I was like, my nose was all black from like the squid. I was like, oh man. And then he had me clean lobsters. It was the first time I ever cried. You got to like rip these things apart, so barbaric. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I start crying. He's like, you can rip them apart or you can be fired. I was like, oh my God. Just fucking crying.
And you weren't even making any money.
No, I was like 14 years old crying over these lobsters, like apologizing to everyone. Actually, there was a guy, Manuel, he set one free. He took a lobster. He was like, I'm going to set this for my...
He threw it in the ocean?
I think he put it in the East River. We were a little drunk. It might have made it. It was brackish. He might have made it to the ocean. And then I got to open oysters. I was an oyster guy for a long time. And then eventually I made it up to a hot app station, which was like, it was like a big deal. But I had a bad attitude, man. I had a bad attitude. I met this guy, Roy Choi. Roy Choi's an amazing chef from LA. He's got incredible, he's a legendary character now, but he's still a dear friend. He was on the station with me, and he describes it. He's just like this little kid, like, I came in from culinary school. I just wanted to learn, and this kid was just such an asshole. I was just like, you're an idiot. You have no idea what you're doing. Like, stand there, don't touch anything, watch, don't talk.
That's how you talk to him?
Yeah, I was just like,
and how old were you at the time?
Like 15 years old. I was just like punched in the face. I got punched in the face a few times.
Did you?
A few times. I laugh because I wrestle, and I don't wrestle. I wrestle, and
you do jiu-jitsu.
I do jiu-jitsu.
Well, you're a black belt under Henzo.
I'm a black belt under Henzo, and I laugh because everybody's got like the one story, the one time that recently they got into some fight, and like I've been in like 20 fights and I've never won a fight in my life. I just got beat up every time because I was always a scrawny kid.
Oh, back
in
the
I
day.
would always get talk. I would I haven't been in a fight in like 20 years.
Is that why you started training?
I started training because I got to San Francisco, and I was scared. And I had a chip on my shoulder. I recognized I was like 20 years old, 21 years old. I was starting to work in kitchens in San Francisco. And I was like, man, like I'm supposed to be from New York. Like I'm supposed to be tough. And these guys are like, I'm scared. It's not fair.
What were you scared of?
You walking home, I was living in the Tenderloin and I was like, I'm going to get mugged. And
Tenderloin's rough.
It's a rough neighborhood.
Have you been there lately?
Is it nice?
You might step in human shit on the way home.
Yeah, well, have you been to my neighborhood? Stop by my house. Yeah, man, I just needed that. I went to Half Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
That's a great place to go.
This guy Kurt was like, I was like, I'm scared. I really want some confidence, but I don't want to have to do any. Kurt Osiander.
Yeah.
Crazy character.
Oh, he's a wild dude.
Amazing character. I learned. I mean, so basically,
is he okay? Didn't he just have some serious health problems?
I have not kept up since he and Half had their like little issue. So I'm not really sure what's going on there at all.
I follow him on Instagram, and he was hospitalized for something.
Yeah, I'm not sure. He definitely pushes really, really hard in his life. So he's not a young man. He pushed really hard.
Yeah,
he was like every now and then you're like, there's somebody that you vote most. Like you least want to get in a fight with that guy. Like Kurt would just eat my heart out. Like it doesn't matter how good you are, how much better you are. I'm like, that guy's gonna beat me up because he's gonna raise the level of violence. He's gonna eat my heart. I'm scared, and he's gonna have a smile on his face. He's a scary guy and an amazing, wonderful character. So I went in there and he put me together with this girl that had been training for like 2 years, and he was like, give it a try, see what you think. And like 30 seconds later, I was like twisted over, yelling uncle. And I was like, he's like, yeah, she's been training for 2 years. I was like, if I'm here for 2 years, am I going to be that good? He's like, yeah. Like if you give it 2 years and you invest that time, you'll be able to feel more confident. Like you can, not worry about getting beat up. And I did. And I really fell in love with it. And 2 years later, she's like, I think she subsequently transitioned, but is like a world champion. So I was never going to be as good as her. He was lying to me. She was really great. But, what a great experience.
Subsequently transitioned?
Yeah, I think she's a man now.
Oh.
But she...
really transitioned.
Yeah, she transitioned, but she could kick my ass as a girl, and she could still kick my ass as a guy. So either way, she's badass. Tough.
You meet a lot of those characters in jiu-jitsu, like people that you would see on the street and think nothing of.
There's a guy named Jeff Noodles at Hanzo Gracie in New York, and he's just such a nice guy, and he's not a big man at all. And he would just kill you. He would just kill anybody.
There's a lot of those guys out there. It's interesting. I call them nerd assassins.
Yeah. I kind of feel a little bit like that guy because I'm definitely not I'm not an intimidating person.
Right.
Especially now that I'm like 20 pounds pizza overweight.
Yeah, you were telling me over the last, how long? 6 months?
6 months.
20 since you opened up the pizza place?
I went from 182 to, maybe I'm a little less than that. I went from 182 to I'm like 197 now, so 15 pounds.
That's what I'm saying about pizza, man. That's why I don't fuck with bread anymore.
Well, I'm like 7 days a week on pizza.
That's
this
crazy.
Is not a casual.
Yeah, you got to abstain.
Yeah.
Pizza's a once a week thing, I think. It's delicious. It's fantastic. I mean, if you could do it every day, but do you know who Mikey Musumeci is?
No, I want to know.
He's a world-class jiu-jitsu practitioner who eats only pizza.
And
He makes his own pizza.
he's not because there's a pizza jiu-jitsu guy from New York. There's a guy whose Instagram is pizza jiu-jitsu. Or pizza
No, this is a different kid. He's a very young guy, and he lives in Vegas. And he's top of the food chain, gi and no gi. He's phenomenal. That's Mikey.
Wow.
He's the perfect
Yeah, but
nerd
how old
assassin.
is that guy, man?
He's very young. I want to say Mikey's in his very early 20s. But
you can eat pizza every day in your early 20s.
If you go to his Instagram, or it might be on his YouTube, see if you can find the pizza. There you go. So a lot of pasta, too. That's him making pasta. But he's either eating pizza or pasta. Oh, this is him at an Italian restaurant, and he's pouring olive oil all over his pasta. But if you go to his YouTube, you can see he actually makes his own pizza. He's got a pizza oven, and he eats once a day. So he trains like literally 10 hours a day plus. I mean, he's fucking driven, and he trains 7 days a week. He's an animal. And he will eat one meal a day. After he's training, he'll eat like a couple massive pizzas.
Wasn't that like Colin
There it
Powell's
is.
thing? He
Cooking
was
with Mikey. So give me some volume on this.
This meal is about 7,000 calories, so I work really hard all day so I could eat what I want at night.
So he had problems with
I
his
usually
weight cutting for, tournaments and the such.
I go to Whole Foods and I
Yeah.
go there.
And
This
so
is
he tried a bunch of
so
different
you
diets,
go
and
in
one of the
here,
things that he
and this is all
look at
pizza
this.
things.
This is all
Here.
he's got a giant
This is
fridge filled
buffalo
with
mozzarella.
pizza food.
This is
Yeah, he's got good.
mozzarella.
He's got good
So this is
ingredients.
cacao.
Oh yeah. Oh, phenomenal
I like
ingredients.
mixing in different
You could
cheeses when I
tell
make the
he
pizza.
knows what he's doing. I mean,
Now
he's
we're gonna
making
do
amazing
Whole
pizza.
Foods.
So he does the whole
Not the
deal
flow, like,
himself.
You're kind of subconscious, just flowing through it,
And like this is like sort of a part of his thing. It's like
you're
it's
just,
not
like,
just
zoning
that
out, like,
he
I just
eats
trained all
pizza,
day.
but he actually makes
So,
it.
I'm just thinking
So
about, like,
every
training
day
and,
he
like,
trains really, really hard.
excited
He's a
about eating, 'cause
world-class
when you fast
competitor.
24 hours, you're just,
And
like,
then
really excited about just eating.
He makes pizza at
thing is-
night, and that's what he eats.
I've done so many diets, and the secret to dieting is actually not dieting. It's just eating what you want and you're satisfied. If you're satisfied,
How old is he?
then
23?
it's
Yeah, he
easy
doesn't know what
to
the fuck
diet.
he's
It's
talking
like
about.
the secret to dieting is not dieting. Just eat pizza and work out like 8 hours a day.
Yeah,
Like,
it's the
cool.
secret to dieting when you work 12 hours a fucking day strangling people. And that's his sister Tammy, and she's also a world
Yeah, all
class
I'm gonna do is
jiu-jitsu.
turn the pizza to the other
This
side.
guy's hysterical.
Yeah, so he's got a little pizza oven in his backyard. One of them
These ovens are super popular now. Like all these little.
little gas drive.
Yeah, cool, man. They get hot and they work.
Charcoal, it's
Yeah.
ready to go.
There are people in LA that are like setting up like taco stands with those and making it on the street. And
Really?
Yeah, it's cool.
Oh,
man.
no kidding. Yeah. Again, this is like, is that as good as a wood-fired one? Like, does it impart the same flavor, or is it okay enough?
I think I don't. Well, look, I'm in New York. I make New York style pizza right now, so it's not wood fired traditionally.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you can make really great pizza in there, but it's not going to have that smoky flavor at all, right? But like,
Right, but is the smoky flavor necessary, or is it just different?
I think that it's just different for sure.
As
not
opposed
necessary.
to like steak.
Well, like the thing about pizza, because if you follow how pizza, and again, like I'm not, I don't want to speak out of turn because I'm not like an expert on this, but I'm.
You own a fucking pizza
I own a
restaurant.
pizza
I think
restaurant.
you
I've
can
been
talk
studying
about
it for a couple of years. Like, so basically, the Italians came to America through New York, and so that's where the first kind of pizza came on the scene. But then, as the kind of like the Italian diaspora starts to spread across the country, you see different ingredients being incorporated in different towns, and then the pizza starts to change based on the local preferences. So it's like I got a pizzeria, I'm opening up over here. This is the type of cheese they've got here, so that's what I'm using. Or maybe this is the type of cheese people like to eat, so that's what I'm. And so they get really specific, and you start to see like, okay, well, this is now traditional Neapolitan pizza, New York style pizza, Chicago style pizza, Detroit style pizza. Those are they're these kind of defined terms because those are that's the pizza that's developed in that area, and so. Now people say, well, we can mix it up. Like we can do a New York style pizza, but we're going to do it in a wood fired oven, and we can, and there's nothing wrong with that. It could be really, really delicious. So when you say like, is it better or should it have the wood? It's like, well, if you're going to make a Neapolitan style pizza, you should do it in a wood-fired oven because that's what was traditionally done. And yeah, it's really delicious. That doesn't mean you can't take that same dough and bake it in a non-wood-fired oven and also have a delicious pizza. It's different, and it's not necessarily then authentic to what it was supposed to be.
It's interesting how different regions of countries have very specific ways of doing things, like bistecca Florentine.
So good.
Oh my God!
So great.
It's just a steak. Yeah. It's a large porterhouse steak, but they figured out the way they like to do it over. I think they mostly use olive for the wood, right? Isn't the hardwood they generally use?
Does the wood? So I don't know what exactly. Sorry, I didn't mean.
No,
I was me being like, I have no idea. So I'm just going to ask you a quick question. That was the other thing Tiller said. He was like, just ask him a question. Does the flavor of the wood, like, I'm always interested in this, and I do this at home all the time. Like I've got orange wood, I've got almond, I've got oak. And I've really been trying to tell, like, can I taste the difference between the smoke from one of these woods versus the other? Some of them, like mesquite, has a really distinct flavor.
So I was going to say that. Mesquite does.
Or alderwood has a really distinct. But a lot of these woods, like, I think it's just that happened, like, in Italy, by the olive vines, they had olive vines, so that's what they used.
Maybe, yeah.
Almond wood in California is super traditional because, the almond farms have to change over their trees every however many years, and they sell off the wood, right? So I feel like, or post oak in Texas is like, you got post oak.
Yeah, there's a lot of oak here, but the guys at Terry Black's that I talked to about it, they generally prefer post oak because they say it's got a nice clean smoke. They like the flavor it imparts. It's not overwhelming, I think was their way of describing it. And
it also burns really long and slow.
Yeah.
So like bang for the buck money wise, oak burns. Like when I cook with almond wood, it takes twice as much almond over oak. And orange wood is super quick.
And that for trying to maintain a steady temperature over a long period of time, I would imagine something like post oak, because that's why Terry Black's probably uses it. They have these enormous smokers that they have to maintain, at a steady 250 for
24 hours a day they're cooking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other than cleaning them out, they're like, it's just rolling. I mean, he showed me the wood. He's got, he's like, this is a week's worth of wood. And you're like, holy shit.
That's crazy. It's so much wood. Yeah. I mean, thank God there's plenty of trees out here.
So maybe there's a financial reason that, the oak burns longer. You get more bang for your buck on the flavor.
Also the flavor, I mean, it does work. It's pretty phenomenal. I don't know what Franklin uses or what Salt Lick uses or some of these other places, but.
I mean, the cost of wood has gone up. I mean, it's in LA, it's like, people would shit their pants. It's like a quarter wood is like $500,
Really?
It's just so much money.
Wow.
And there's all kinds, the government is really, there's the pollution thing is a thing for them. So they're like, we want to cut down on people using wood. So there's all kinds of incentives. Like as a restaurant, you can't get wood. I think you can. They're like going to make everybody have electric in their houses pretty soon.
Yeah, they're stopping fireplaces because apparently that's a big issue in terms of like pollution, particulate pollution, and what smoke from a fireplace does, which really sucks because it's the best smell. When you go into a house and the fireplace is cooking and it's warm out, like if you're in Colorado and you got a fireplace and it's January, that's amazing. You get inside the house, you smell the fireplace, and it's cool. You smell it outside when you're getting close to the house.
I think the thing that's, you just run into this all the time now because everybody's so like staunch in their politics and everybody's got their opinions, but it's like, I'm in LA. I'm like, I don't give a shit about the fireplace. It's like 1,000 degrees all year long. Like, no problem.
Right.
And then, but, people in Colorado are like, yo, man, the fireplace is really a piece of our, whatever it is.
History.
So depending upon where you're from, obviously you care more or less, but there's nothing I like more than the smell of a fireplace.
I think the thing is, it's fine if you live in a small town and you're not really contributing that much. But if you live in a large city, you have a few million people in your city, and a few 100,000 of them are burning fires at the same time, you might have a problem.
And maybe if you're a firefighter, you're like, these jackasses are just like burning their houses down. Like,
Yeah, there's definitely that. And then
trying to work on this calendar, and this guy's just like.
In LA, there's an issue with barbecues too. Like there's warnings. Like sometimes when there's high wind, like the Santa Anas, and it's dry out, they're worried about embers flying from someone's barbecue and starting a fire, which
lands on your roof, and that happens.
Fucking happens, yeah.
It's also happens. Like, I came to Austin. I'm like, this whole town smells like just grilling meat. Like you can't. It really does. Like
Yeah.
as soon as you get out of the plane, you're like, wow, I can smell the barbecue.
Well, there's a salt lick at the airport.
It was good.
Yeah, not bad. You go right away.
So in LA, you're like, I mean, I am that annoying neighbor that makes my whole block smell like wood fire, and I love it when someone else is doing it. But I can understand how if you're like, if that's not your favorite flavor.
I don't think the problem is the smell. I think the real problem is the pollution. I mean, people are worried about what it's actually doing to air quality.
Well, that's the like whatever you want to say about long-term environmental impact of there's a real air quality issue that exists. Like no matter what, no question about it. Like you're in LA, your lungs start aching downtown. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
you can't even see the mountains through the haze, and then it'll rain. You're like, holy shit, there's mountains out there. It's crazy. Like it's dirty.
Are you living in downtown?
No, I live in Venice. I live by the beach.
Oh, that's okay.
I
That's a
got
little better
beautiful-
quality, except for the bullets.
I've got a great tent right by the ocean.
Nice.
It's gorgeous.
Hey, Jamie, I emailed you his grills, all the stuff that he's created. Did you get a hold of that? Yeah. So this project of you making grills, there we go.
Oh, look at those eggplants. Look at that thing.
Nice.
So this is the steal. So like, oh man, I'm so
You
excited
made this
about
all yourself?
Dude, it was 3 weeks with a welder, and I
Wow.
was so obsessed. It was so fun, man. I got that.
God bless cowgirls. What's the hammers for?
Well, I wanted to do axe handles, and I went to Home Depot, and the axes were like $25. So I was like,
That's your handles.
the hammers were like $4. So I was like, I'll go with that. I'll upgrade to the axes later.
Wow. So this is an interesting setup. What is this? This is like an outdoor,
So-
raised and lowered grilling space.
So basically, I didn't go with the traditional. You can raise the grills up and down on a wire with a turn knob. I decided to do, I was inspired by this restaurant. There's a restaurant called Echebari in northern Spain, which is like probably one of the most famous grill restaurants in the world. And they do their grills like this, where you can pick them up and put them down. So the pieces from the inside of the grill can come out, and they cantilever off of any height there, and you can stick them in. So you can raise or lower your grills like that. And then you can also, I liked it because you see that basket with the peppers in it there? Like I built that out of stainless steel, and the idea is I built all those grills out of stainless steel, so you can kind of like put different pieces of equipment in.
So you built all those grates, you wired all those rods, welded all those rods down and everything?
If you were to look closely, you'd see that they're very, very jagged. And if you were to also try and cook anything on there, you'd notice that they're too far apart. Stuff's falling through. So I definitely built them myself. I made the mistakes,
Right.
It gives you such a great respect for the people that do this, man. It's so
That's
cool.
a beautiful piece of equipment, though. I think that looks amazing.
Thank you.
And so was this a video? Oh, that's
yeah.
just God bless. It's your opening up.
It's like, so that's what I'm
your
talking about.
firebox.
That's not the firebox. So the firebox is down below, but that's me grilling. Like there, you can see that's the picture. You got the fire underneath, inside
Right.
the oven space, and you can kind of close it down.
Right. So you explain that. So you're not really doing an offset. You're smoking like almost like a Kamado style.
So you could do either way, or you can put the fire in the firebox down below. It holds a really consistent 275.
Oh, so you do have a firebox on top of that. Go back to the early. Oh, so below that, that bottom thing opens up, and that's a firebox.
Exactly.
Oh, so that's great. So you have many options.
So you can either put the fire up top or down below. And I like that because I've got these stones that slide in there, so you can bake bread on multiple levels.
Oh.
You can grill at multiple levels. You can put 5, 2, 4, 6 briskets in there.
Do you ever do a pizza on
And
that
smoke
thing?
them. And you can do pizza on the
the
stone,
flat rock?
or you could put the fire at the back and get like that Neapolitan 900 degrees. Look at these shrimp.
Shrimps. Nice.
Shrimp are just it's
And
great.
it's got to be very satisfying also to cook on something that you literally created with your own hands.
The only problem with this grill is that I've had like 30 people in my house, and I've never used more than 10% of the capacity. I mean,
it's
on paper, it
huge.
looks so small.
Yeah, no,
It's
that's
so big.
huge. What is your grilling surface like? What's the distance?
It's literally, you could put a whole pig on the right side and 6 briskets. It's huge.
Oh,
It's
wow.
4 foot. It's a 4 foot
So
grill.
that part over there.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever done a pig over it, like a rotisserie style?
I've got a rotisserie for it, and I've never, my sister-in-law bought me a rotisserie for it. I've
Wow.
never actually done a whole pig on there. I should do that.
Looks amazing. That's got to be so cool though to go out in your backyard and see this thing that you made yourself that you can cook on.
It makes me so proud and happy, and I also feel like such a psycho because it's so big. And it's like, well, eventually, what am I going to do when I go to sell this house? I'm going to get a crane? Like, that's coming with it.
It comes with the house.
Comes with the house.
Yeah, sell it and build a new one, or give up.
Or just like go down to Venice Beach and be like, here's $20, and you can take all the scrap metal you can have and give them 24 hours.
Oh, you did. You would pay $1,000 to not deal with those people. Yeah. I think what you should do is sell it with the house, or never move.
Chef's Kitchen. You rent it out. Chef's Kitchen is a big commodity.
And a massive homemade smoker / grill with multiple cooking surfaces outside. I mean, that alone would get people excited about, like, a guy who likes grilling, who's looking at your house like, holy, that would be a giant selling point. It's
a buck a piece is wood these days. That's what it really comes down to. So every time I cook any steak, I'm like, it's going to cost $11.
Right.
It cost me $11 worth of wood.
Yeah. And so when you cook steaks, are you cooking steaks, so you're doing it in the top box? You're putting the fire above it?
So most of the time, if I'm cooking a thin steak, like a steak that's, regular inch thick steak, I'm creating a fire. And this was what I was talking about with that Grillworks grill, which I think are phenomenal grills. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the base of my grill space, not the barbecue space, but the grill space, it's lined with fire bricks and it's got a round. And what I like to do is get a big fire going that heat up those bricks and get a lot of heat in there that even if I were to turn the fire off, I could cook the steak on there because the heat is going to continue that keeps the consistency. Because like if you cook in a classic Weber grill, it's a really gratifying experience. They're amazing grills, but it can be challenging because you're either on the upswing or on the downswing. Like,
right.
It's either getting hotter and hotter and hotter, or it's getting colder and colder and colder. So you're like, I got to stage it perfectly. I got to get the steak on at the right moment, my vegetables on at the right moment, or I got to put more charcoal on, which can be tricky.
Weber has a steel Kamado now.
And those are phenomenal.
Yeah,
right?
it's insulated. They have it's very nice. And they do it. What's nice about the way Weber built theirs is it's very portable because it's not that heavy.
Really? I dropped a big green egg once.
Oh, Jesus.
You know what happened?
Did it destroy?
Oh, yeah. It's
broke apart? Yeah.
Curtains.
I had a Kamado. A Komodo Kamado. Have you ever seen one of those?
Those are amazing. Komodo Joe?
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Well, not Komodo Joe. It's a company called Komodo Kamado, and they make these beautiful, like, artistic, artisan Kamados. It was fucking huge. This huge blue thing
they gave
in my
it
backyard.
To you.
No, I bought it.
You bought it?
Yeah, and you had to lift it up. Oh, it took forever to order it. I designed it. Like you get to pick the color of the tile and the whole deal, and you have to season it and break it in because it's like the real deal. It's like, that's what it looks like.
Oh, yeah. That's
gorgeous.
Gorgeous grill.
Gorgeous. Yeah, I mean, it's a huge Kamado.
Everyone. Yeah. Just on size, and it's got the feet, looks like a penguin.
Mm-hmm. Oh. It's beautiful. And then, they have a gas attachment if you want to, start the grill with gas, but I never used that. But look how pretty that is.
Gorgeous grill.
They make the best looking grills.
How much is that grill, though?
It's very expensive.
It's like $4,000?
I don't remember.
Maybe more.
I don't remember. I left it in my old house. I said, you can have it.
My buddy Kyle that I was talking about from Oakland, he's got that Komodo Joe. Those are also, and then they gave me a big green egg. And then I broke it. I dropped it. And then they gave me another one. I was like, guys, I'm so sorry. Because I was like a chef. They were like, you'll take pictures with it.
Yes.
Early on in the days, they were like, you'll take pictures, you'll help sponsor. I was like, I'm going to take a picture. It's not going to sell it, dude.
Yeah, big green eggs are great.
Phenomenal
Kamado
grills.
Joes, those are great too. Kamado Joes is very well designed because they have the way they use the upper, the baffle when it changes the temperature and adjust things. They've got a bunch of very smart.
Also, the way it opens and closes is a little easier.
Yeah, they got springs on the lid and everything like that. It's very, very. They took the existing Kamados and they made them better.
I feel like again, you've got traditional barbecue and then you've got grilling, two completely different things, although often conflated. People don't, and then these are kind of these hybrid. Barbecue ovens, which you can grill on, and it's confusing for people how I'm supposed to use this stuff.
Yeah, luckily there's plenty of tutorials online on how to smoke on a Kamado or how to grill on a Kamado. But the thing about the ceramic, for most of them, it's the ceramic is what's retaining heat. But like I said, Weber makes one that's way easier to move around, and it's I think they call it the Summit. and it's just a thick insulated steel, but you know, it's like a fraction of the weight. And there's another company that makes one that's aluminum. They make an aluminum insulated Kamado that's supposed to be the same thing. It's all about
insulating.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, I feel like there's two pieces because one of them is insulating, so that your meat, so that the coals last longer, you're not wasting the energy. But then the other thing is that the thing heats up and it holds the heat so that it radiates its own heat.
Yeah.
And then that keeps it consistent. Like when you open and close the lid, does it lose all the heat? And if the stone is hot, it'll just immediately pick back up.
Right. Right. That's the benefit of the ceramic.
Of the thicker ceramic grills.
Yeah.
You know.
That's why they're so fucking heavy.
And they're huge. It's expensive. They can break. You've got to.
Yeah.
They're a pain in the butt to, if you want to move the thing, it's a nightmare, but they're great.
So what I'm doing with the Grillworks one is I'm having a whole thing built. So it's going to have stone underneath it and then in all around it, and then it's all bricks and everything. So the entire thing will be set up specifically for that Grillworks grill.
I love that. I love that. I got cautioned by a guy basically who was like, just make sure that you have the stones in there to retain the heat. Otherwise, it can be more challenging to maintain a consistent fire just from the fire and the coals.
Yeah, the one I have has stones in it.
It does, huh?
Yeah,
they're phenomenal grills. I mean, all the restaurants, that's what they use because they look beautiful, and they're like crazy grill dorks who just make the
exactly.
Every best chef uses it, and then they take the feedback and they just make it better and better and better.
Well, when I went to that place, Bizarre Meats, have you been to that place?
Yeah. Very cool guy.
Incredible.
Have you had him on the?
No, Jose. How do you spell
Jose
Andres?
He's also like a very special man who like feeds the world. And he's an incredible storyteller.
Oh, really?
He takes his shoes off and paces and tells you a story, and you're like just enthralled. He's incredible. He's got a big beer belly family. He's an amazing cook.
All right. Yeah. Well, his restaurant's incredible. That Bizarre Meats place is amazing. But one of the beautiful things about it is you go there and you can see, they have it like as a centerpiece, these grills where you can watch them cook on it. So as you walk in, you're taking the smell in of all the burning wood and the meat, and it's all being done like right in front of your face so you can see it. See if you can find any images. There's videos of Bizarre Meats in Vegas where you could see them cooking on it as you walk in. But it's my favorite place to eat in Vegas. Look at that. God damn, that looks good. See if you can find, there's got to be some video of it.
I went to a party that he had at the Aspen Food and Wine Festival. And when you walked in, he was standing there with a whole leg of Iberico ham. And he was making Iberico ham and caviar tacos and giving them out.
There he is. So does he have a place it says the SLS Hotel in Beverly Hills
I think that was Bizarre Foods. It was kind of like his very avant-garde restaurant. I'm not sure if that's still there.
Jamie, go back to go back to where you were. Go back to where you were and then pick up, go back. Go back and go to the top video. That one right there. That one shows the actual restaurant.
Yeah, he had one of those legs and he was just making putting caviar. Look at
so there you can see how the grill works.
That's a Grillworks grill.
Yeah,
exactly. Phenomenal grills.
Yeah, and it's just it's also like the experience of being there is, it's exciting. My
brother's building a house, and we've been talking about what grill to put in. We're designing this outdoor kitchen. It's so hard because you want to fit everything.
You want to get it right.
Yeah, you want to and he's got a big pizza oven, and you want to be able to do all the different stuff, right?
Right.
And he's a big entertainer. He loves having people over. He's like a Hollywood guy. His house, and I'm going to cook there. So it's a whole thing.
So he's setting it up.
He's setting it up. He's like, if I got to make it nice, so my brother will come over, and then
Nice.
I'm a big party favor. Yeah.
Well, do you enjoy doing that, like cooking not just at work, but also for home gatherings and stuff like that?
That was my partner Matt Rodbard and I. That was like a big piece of the puzzle that for writing this cookbook was like, I love cooking at home, and there are not a lot of chefs that love to cook at home. Like home cooks and chefs is a very different job. I like the organizational kind of piece of running a team and inspiring and teaching and all that stuff. but I really love to cook hands on. And when you open and own a restaurant, you don't get to do it as much as maybe people would think. Like
You're mostly telling people what to do.
Honestly, you're like plunging the toilet, man. You're doing anything you can to keep the thing afloat because it's a tough business and you're hustling. And so you're doing whatever you have to do and not always really spending the time. I mean, obviously there's chefs that are maybe better organized that can just put their like now I've done it for a while, so like I'm really in the kitchen stretching pizza dough all day long, and it's awesome. But cooking at home is a different. There's a different level of pressure, right? And you can really experiment and have fun with the food. So I love doing that. And cooking the dinners at my brother's house. Friends would come over. You know, we still do every Sunday. We do a Sunday supper. Everybody comes over, and you know, some days it's like we're rushing home from the beach in the summer, and we're just making whatever we can. But other days it's like we go to the farmer's market in the morning. We make it a whole day affair. It's the best. You know, and the kids are running around and they want to help. It's great. You know.
There's a thing about like preparing for a meal and like looking forward to it over the course of the day and getting ready and getting everything set up.
It's why Americans love Thanksgiving. Like we all get together. It's like the one time. There's like it's the only religion-free holiday. We all like get together and just cook. You know, the only people, the turkeys they don't do as well.
They don't, but I'm not a big fan of turkeys.
Here's the thing. So I went to so let me just call this out, right? I went to the barbecue yesterday. I had the turkey, and I shit my pants. It was so unbelievably delicious. I've never had turkey like this before.
Really?
I've cooked the turkey different every single year. You know, I've gotten like I'm really screwed up a couple of years. I made some spectacular. The turkey at the barbecue is, I don't know how they do it. I was like, how do these guys do it? It's so moist and tender and delicious. You should try it. I think you'll be shocked.
Well, I've had the turkey at Terry Black's. It's really good. And I've had turkey myself that I cooked on a Traeger, and I really liked it. It was very good. That's the first time I'd ever smoked a turkey using a pellet
Was it
grill.
tender?
Oh, yeah. It was fantastic. It was delicious. And I did it with the super smoke setting. Traeger has a super smoke setting, so it like accentuates the smoke in the fire, in the cooking surface, in the cooking area. And so it was very smoky and delicious.
I feel like those grills are so good. They like really, really work. But I'm not allowed to use them. You know, I'm like a chef, so I'm like, man, I can't cheat. Like,
because it's cheating.
It's cheating.
Well, I love cooking on them because like I'll use those oftentimes like for the reverse sear steaks because I'll set it at 225. I'll set the super smoke. I put a thermometer in there. I got a Traeger app, so it tells me like what temperature my meat is. I could be watching TV and it's like, okay, we're at 110. Time to
Perfect.
pull. Yeah, I'll pull it at 110 and then I'll sear it. The only thing that they don't have that I really wish they would do is make a direct fire option so that you could sear in the same thing. Like there's a company called Lone Star Grills, and they make phenomenal offset smokers, but they also make a really good pellet grill. But it has a setting where you move this grate aside, this plate in the bottom.
It exposes the fire.
It exposes the fire, and then you crank it up with the lid open, and then it has direct flame. So then, you know, you're cooking literally right over the fire. And it's still just wood and fire because you're using these pellets. The pellets are essentially compressed sawdust from hardwood. And so that option, I wish Traeger would
figure out how to do that
because Lone Star Grill has it. And they make amazing just traditional offset smokers too.
I feel like people don't understand. It's one of the most confusing things for people to understand the difference between like barbecue and grilling, and then you know, and when and where and how and why to apply the technique to which type of meat, right? Because you know, if you were to like barbecue a ribeye, you would really ruin Christmas. It would just be like a big old waste of, you know. But if you were to grill like a brisket, it would be a nightmare. It would be like chewy garbage.
Yes.
And so like, how do I know? And the answer is, you know, it's pretty, as a chef, like this is where the like food IQ questions come into mind. It's like, well, as a chef, it's really, really straightforward and easy. Like the more an animal uses a muscle, the tougher it gets, you know, the more sinewy, tough stuff is in there, the longer and slower I have to cook it to break it down. And like the leaner and the less used a muscle, like the more tender, and the faster I cook it and the more I can eat it rare. And it's like, that's just basic and makes sense. And then grilling is for quick cooking or fat, quicker cooking, and barbecuing is for longer and slower. Plus, because it's in a closed box, it's moist, so it's like kind of almost like dry braising the meat, and it breaks it down. So like, I feel like that is where people, because I often see people being like, oh, I threw this flank steak in my Traeger. I'm like, oh, you fucked that up. Oops.
Yeah,
right there.
it's just that flank steak is a good example, right? Because it's a thin cut, and you really want to just sort of sear it quick on the outside. Like I said, like they all have their different things that work well with them. I really like Traegers and any kind of pellet grill for game meat because it's so lean, and you just really want to just sort of get it up to temperature. And then I generally sear it on a cast iron skillet.
So that reverse cooking technique that you're talking about, it's very safe, right? Because I don't want to. This is where. So when I think about the temperature at the inside of the meat, like I want to cook a piece of beef to 125 degrees, let's say, or like 120 degrees. I want the final temperature inside to be rare, medium rare. Mm-hmm. If I cook it at 400 degrees, by the time that it gets to 125 on the very middle and it's right, like it's going to be really overcooked on the outside. It's going to be challenging. And whereas if I cook it at 130 degrees, really, really slow, maybe 270 degrees, very, very slowly, and let it come up to temperature, it's going to be perfectly cooked all the way through.
Yeah.
And then I sear the outside. So for something like either very, very lean game meats, or like we were saying for a thick piece of ribeye where I really want that fat on the inside to have a chance to liquefy. I think it was like, what's his name? Franklin that was here.
Philip Franklin Lee.
Philip, he was talking about cooking this like Wagyu steak slowly up high on the grill, and the fat starts to liquefy. It's like he's doing the reverse sear on that meat, even though he didn't admit it. He was reverse searing it. He was like, I don't reverse sear, but I do this thing very similar that is exactly the same thing.
Well, at Bazaar Meats, they have like the upper deck where it's really only like 90 degrees.
It's just like slowly.
Yeah, it's just slowly and taking in all the smoke, and they get it up to, I forget what their internal temperature is, and then they drop it down and put it over the flames.
So that was like, when we're writing this cookbook, I'm like, okay, well, this is an opportunity to really test stuff out. So one of the fun ones is I always have steak in the freezer. I always have steaks in the freezer. I got this guy. Do you know, did we talk Heritage Foods USA or no?
I've heard of them. Yeah.
So like this guy Patrick Martins, it's a phenomenal story. He's like basically took heritage breeds that would be extinct otherwise, and he's out there meeting farmers and convincing them to grow these animals for him. And then he's buying them and distributing them to chefs. Now you can go online, you can get them directly to you. But like, you go online, you get the steak, and it's got a little QR code, and you can like visit the farm. And I've been with him. I bought all. We had a restaurant called the Meatball Shop back in New York. Visited all the farms, and we got all of our pork from these guys. And so I've been to all these farms, like Amish farms, where they're growing these incredible, like close to extinct species of animals, like keeping them alive on the planet. And I just like completely lost track. Was it the
Heritage
CBD? It was
breed.
the CBD.
There's no
it was
CBD.
the CBD in my booze.
You were talking about heritage breed animals and slow cooking and heritage farms.
I've completely lost track of myself.
Really?
Yeah. But
okay. Well, heritage breed food. Heritage breed pork. There's a company called Butcher Box. They sell heritage breed pork. That's one of the things that they have.
There are so many different breeds out there, and they all have their own specific qualities, and for different reasons. And like, makes sense that if you lived in the lamb from whatever island in Scotland, was bred for the fur, and then the meat might have been a little bit tougher, but then if you cook it in this way, it's delicious, and it all works together. But then if you take that lamb and you try and cook it in a different way, maybe it's not as
right.
As great.
If you don't know what you're doing,
it's kind of like, so during the pandemic, writing this cookbook, I had a chance to cook, a lot really scientifically. Like, say I'm going to cook different types of meat, different ways, and really try and get, is this working? And I always have steak from Patrick in my freezer, and I think they're the best steaks in the world. Like, I really think like best steak in the world.
Really?
And,
That's strong words.
he's got this Akiushi beef that's just unbelievable.
What is the word?
Akiushi. It's like a Japanese. It's the Japanese breed of cattle that they make Wagyu beef out of, or whatever it is, Miyazaki, like, beef out of. But it's been bred with Angus, and there are few guys, I think, here in Texas that are selling these cattle. They've got super high fat, but they're tender like Angus. They're unbelievably delicious. And I always have these steaks in my freezer, and I would come home from jiu-jitsu. I'm like ravenously hungry. I just like had a 23-year-old guy try and beat the shit out of me, and I had to defend my black belt, which is, like, what that's like. You get a little older, and you go like, dude, this guy's 23 years old. He's a purple belt, and he knows that if he taps me in front of the instructor, he's going to get his brown belt. So he's just like coming at me, and I'm like, dude, I've just ate like pizza for 3 months, homie, and I'm so hungry. And
Keeps you honest, though.
It does. You gotta defend it. Every now and then I'm like, the problem is that I'm gonna beat you, and then my arm's gonna hurt for a week.
Right.
And you're not gonna remember, but I'm gonna remember.
Yeah, those are the times.
But I would take the steak right out of the freezer and throw it right in the broiler, and I was like, holy shit! You could take a steak, try it. Take a New York steak, frozen. Throw it in the broiler, like 4 minutes each side, and it comes out perfect.
Really?
It's delicious.
I've heard people say that before. That they, like, many people say that you should bring a steak to room temperature, but I've heard many other people say no, you should actually put it on cold. That way the middle of it will cook slower.
I think for a thinner steak, it's very helpful, right? Because if you want to keep a rare, like I don't know, I used to go to Moon's over in Miami. What is that place?
Denny's? Yeah.
And they have that real thin steak, and it was always like medium rare. Never
Right.
worked out. But if they had frozen it first, maybe it probably came from the freezer.
You just ask for rare.
Go rare.
You got to go rare
Go
at
rare,
Denny's.
go home.
It's just so small.
Moon's over Miami is such a great name.
It is a great name. Yeah.
Those eggs. But if you freeze the steak when it's real thin, you have a better chance of keeping it rare in the center.
Wasn't that like what steakums are? Aren't they like frozen? You slap it right on a grill?
Right on the grill. I used that for my I did some Philly cheesesteaks the other day with those. Philly cheesesteak is,
it's amazing that they nailed it. Like, again, that's like a regional dish that you think a steak sandwich is universal, but nope.
Yeah. They should write about that in the Bible. It's just God's food right there. It's the best. That'll change a man. It's so delicious.
Yes.
A great Philly cheesesteak is like, and they're such good people in Philly, man. Philly's such a great town.
It's a great town.
They're just working. They're like, this is $6. The sandwich is $6. So I had this restaurant called the Meatball Shop, and we were like, we were talking about what we're expanding to a different city because we got a bunch in New York. And I went to Philly, and I was like, shit, man, we can't come here. They got like the best sandwiches in the world, and they're $5, and they're all over. We're just gonna get crushed. We're gonna be like, take this $13 meatball sandwich. They were like, nope, no chance. No chance.
Yeah, they've got the market cornered with authenticity.
They're so good there.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, Philly is a great place for boxing. It's a great place for comedy. It's a great place for hip hop. I mean, it's like there's so much great shit that's come out of Philly. It's just
real people problems.
Yeah, real people. That's the thing. People. When you have cities, there's like good and bad of cities, right? But one of the good things is that pressure creates diamonds, like this. All those human beings together.
There's something I felt it. I was in Texas last year. I do big like kind of like adventure backcountry heli skiing trip every year. I was in Alaska, and I was like, these people are really like, they're not I wouldn't necessarily say that I want to be best friends with every person I've met on the street here, but I know that if I was in trouble, I'd want this guy to come bail me out. Like,
which part of Alaska were you in?
I was deep in Alaska. I drove. It was like 5 hours from Anchorage or 6. But for someone in Alaska, 5. I went to a restaurant in Alaska, and the kids' menu was called the Texas size because they're like the little boys down there. I was like, holy shit, these guys it's a big state.
They're resilient humans up there. Yeah. They are a different breed of people. When you have bears in your backyard, you're a different person.
It's also like the winter, surviving through the winter there, you're planning ahead. And there's a sense of like, real camaraderie where like if you don't pull over when somebody is in a ditch on the side of the road, you're killing that person. That person's not making it.
Exactly. Yeah. I grew up in Boston, and there's something to that. There's the winter gives people a different sense of community. You help people. Like we would, help people get their cars out. Help, you see someone stuck and their wheels are spinning. You pull over, you see what you can do. There's a thing to that doesn't exist in Los Angeles because there's a diffusion of responsibility. There's too many people. You don't feel like you're a part of their problem. Like, they'll be fine. But when they're not going to be fine, like a place like Alaska, that develops that sense of real connection with people.
Yeah, I've huddled under an umbrella in a rainstorm in New York, and you're like best friends with whoever it is. And then you can, fuck you. They're done. I don't need to be your friend. For that moment, we got brethren.
Well, that was the thing about New York post 9/11. Like post 9/11, New York was a beautiful place. Like I hate that that's what brought it out of people, but there's a thing about 9/11 after the attacks where it felt like people were more friendly, more connected to each other. It felt just different. It felt there was more love in the air.
I think about this all the time when I think about, like, if we were to define some of these terms, like in the kitchen, amongst restaurateurs, people are always talking about, like, I care about my employees. And I'm like, well, like, what does it really mean to define the word care about somebody? Like, what does that mean? It's like, I'm going to put their needs in front of my own. Like, that means I'm caring about them. And so there's the image of caring because I say I care, or like whatever that is, or donate to charity. And then there's the real, like, life caring about somebody when it's going to be more inconvenient for me to stop and help, and I'm going to miss something maybe important for me, but I'm going to take the time to really care. And I feel like in certain areas, folks are more interested in the image of caring than maybe in the real caring.
I think that's well put. I think that so many people are interested in looking like a good person. And, whether it's on social media or whether it's, lip service, the way you talk to other people about it. But whether or not you really care, genuinely care, that's a different story.
I wish that, but we're never going to, or hopefully we're not faced with an opportunity to, like, really where the rubber meets the road. But every now and then you're like, okay, shit's hitting the fan. I got to grab one person to help me. Like, who am I really going to call? Am I going to call like my best friend who I bitch to, or am I going to call like the person I don't really like, but I know is going to, like, come and help me and get me through the problem? I don't know.
I'm sure that when human beings lived in tribal groups, our bonds and our connections were far deeper. I'm sure, because we relied on each other so much more. There were no supermarkets. There was no refrigeration. You had to get food every day, and everyone had to carry their own weight. And you were struggling. There was no, you got lucky. You were skillful rather, and you got an animal, and the whole tribe eats. But then next thing in the morning, you're back to work again. There's no time off, and that kind of life is a brutal, vicious way of life where it's there's no hospitals. So if you get hurt, you don't survive generally. If you get an infection, you don't survive. If you get an attack, you don't survive.
You're basically you're not going to make it very far.
But that the finality of existence probably brought people closer together. And I think one of the things it's contrary to what you would think, like the logic would be that if life was easier, you'd be happier. But I don't necessarily think that's true. I think there's something about life being too easy that it fucks people's heads up because they need a certain amount of struggle in order to have a meaning for their existence. I think that's how we're hardwired because of hundreds of thousands of years of hard scrabble living to try to get by. And then within the last, X amount of years, it's been pretty fucking easy to coast. There's more fat people now than there ever been. This is the first time in history where poor people are fat. It's, back in the day, fat people were super attractive. They would paint these Rubenesque models because it was so rare that a woman was so opulent that she had the ability to get overweight.
Well, there's also a different definition today of what quote unquote what being fat is, right? Like, I think that back in the day there were fewer people that were really morbidly obese, which is like I went to the doctor a few years ago. Doctor said, you're morbidly obese. And if we look at what that means from a medical, forgetting all the other.
He said that to you?
He said that to me.
That doesn't make any sense.
I was 210 pounds, and I'm 5'8", and that gets me there.
Yeah, but that you can't. They do that shit with BMI. That's nonsense.
All I know
I'm
is he said
technically
it's
obese.
unhealthy. You're not obese, are you?
I'm technically obese. If you look at the body mass index, I'm technically obese.
So maybe the doc, from a medical perspective, they're saying, look, is this a healthy weight that you're weighing? And then,
It's not. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way because you're just doing it on an average of body height. People are built differently. They're just built differently. Their bones are different width. They have different size hands, different width shoulders. They're thicker. Some like Samoans, for instance. There's some guys that are heavyweight kickboxers. Like, for example, there's a guy named Mark Hunt. Mark Hunt is about 5'10", and he was one of the greatest kickboxers of all time. And he's a heavyweight. At 5'10", he was like 260 pounds. He's a thick, big fucking
beast.
Dude. He's not morbidly obese. He's just built different. Some guys are built tiny and frail. You can't compare a guy who's 5'10", who's tiny and frail with tiny bones to a guy like Mark Hunt or a lot of other a lot of Italians that are big, thick people at shorter statures. It's just you can't do that. That body mass index, it really should be about body fat. Like how much body fat, what percentage body fat do you have? Now, if I'm measured by body fat, I'm not obese at all. I'm not even close. But if you look at just the BMI, I'm technically obese.
So this is like a big, people are like, hey, you're going on Joe Rogan. This guy's, got millions, it's like the most listened to, whatever. So many people are going to hear this. Like, what's the one thing that you would want the world, if you could change something based on this, like, what would you want? I would say, well, we should really do a little bit better of educating people how to take care of their bodies, how to eat. Like, you go to school, and every period is an educational period, and then recess is when you eat. And they don't teach us anything about the importance of what we put in our bodies, how we eat, how it's going to affect us. And it's maybe, the most important decision we're going to make for our long-term health period. And I wish we would put a little bit more energy into that, because what you're talking about right here is like, man, if people really understood what type of body they had and how to take care of themselves, we would be in way better shape, man. We'd would just be in a better shape. We all feel better about ourselves when we are healthy and able to perform, right, physically.
For sure. I think, in a perfect world, it would be a normal part of everyone's day to exercise instead of this thing that people dread and people procrastinate about and most people put off. If you look at the percentage of people in America that are like legitimately obese, not by the body mass index, but by percentage of body fat, it's unusually high. And
although it's getting better, isn't it getting better? I feel as though visually from what if you were to look at 10 years ago, it was the first generation of children who had a shorter life expectancy than their parents because, congenital heart disease was just such a massive killer. And it felt at that time, just from observation, that that folks certainly in the last 10 years, health and health-related exercise has been way more popular. Like the gyms are constantly all over the place. Whether or not people are following through, it's definitely there has been a rebound. You don't feel that way?
I think there has been a popularization of exercise, but in terms of the amount of people that are fit, I don't think there's been that much of a change, unfortunately. And during the pandemic, I think it's actually dropped off. One of the things that we were talking about recently was children during the pandemic. There's been a big upswing in obesity amongst children, unfortunately, and big upswing in the amount of fat gained and weight gained for kids because, for 2 years they
can't go outside. Can't do anything. Unfortunately,
the hope is that turns around now. And that we're kind of we see the light at the end of the tunnel and we're getting out of this thing. But it would have been an amazing opportunity during the pandemic for people to take care of their health and realize that that's like one of the primary factors of whether or not you have a good outcome versus a bad outcome from COVID. It's a huge. There's many factors, right? But that's a primary factor. Obesity is one of the biggest comorbidities.
There's just nobody has ever once argued that there's something negative about being in good shape. Like there's just
Exactly.
I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on. If you're in better shape, it's better, period.
Yeah.
And there's no amount of exercise. Like there are people, like my friend, I was talking about my partner at the Meatball shop, this guy Mike Chernow. The guy is health obsessed. And it's like, great. You're health obsessed. No one's shaming you for that, man. Like every time I want to get a whiskey, he's out in the gym. Like good for him. Like that's a good thing, being health obsessed. You could be obsessed about a lot of things. Why not be obsessed about your health? He's got a protein based breakfast oatmeal that he just launched. It's with Gary Vaynerchuk. Do you know Gary Vaynerchuk?
Sure.
He partnered with him and he did this thing that's very.
How do you get a protein based oatmeal?
So basically, he was like, and I don't want to mess it up. He's the guy you should look at. He started this company called Creatures of Habit based on he started bodybuilding. He got his pro card. And it was his breakfast every morning. He was like, I eat my oatmeal, and I put protein in, I put nuts, and I make this delicious breakfast. And I want to sell it. I'm going to start selling it for folks.
So does he have like a whey protein?
He's got. I think it's I don't think it's whey protein. I feel like there was a reason that he is the type of. I mean, he's like, you could talk to this. You should have this guy on the. You should have him on there. He's incredibly.
Oh, pea protein.
It's pea protein.
Chia seeds, digestive enzymes, pumpkin seeds, Himalayan pinks. It looks great.
Everything he put in there, he's
Monk
got a
fruit.
reason for it.
Stevia, so you're getting your sweetness without sugar. Looks good.
I think you'll be into this guy
well?
because he's got a really cool story. He struggled. He was living on his own at 14 years old. He's like the coolest kid I ever met. And he was my best friend for years and years and years. We opened this restaurant together. We fought like cats and dogs. We went to couples therapy together. It was a nightmare. And we ended up not talking, breaking up for years. And then we recently reconnected and we're like, I love you. I love you. I get some of that free oatmeal.
Give me some of your protein oatmeal.
I eat oatmeal and it's like swallowing a hand grenade. I got like 9 minutes before
you have to take a shit.
Oh yeah, right away.
Especially with coffee.
Just right away. Yeah, it's like a pack of cigarettes for other guys.
Yeah, oatmeal and coffee. Those are the ones. Are you a coffee drinker?
I drink coffee every morning.
Do you pay attention to it?
So Matt Rodbard, this Food IQ guy, he went to Ethiopia. He's visiting like coffee
the motherland
plantations
of
and
coffee.
He's obsessed with it. And he was like, dude, you're just embarrassing yourself, because I was a milk and sugar guy. Because I'm like, it doesn't taste good. Add milk and sugar. It's like melted ice cream. I don't care. And he's got me on. There's this company, Yes Please, PLZ, and they do a coffee subscription, and they basically send it to you every week. And he was like, he subscribed me. He's like, get this coffee.
I get that same from Black Rifle Coffee.
I saw that in the store because of your podcast. Good coffee.
Oh, it's the best. They're the best, and they're great people. It's an awesome company.
Tell me, is the caffeine in there? Do they have different coffees with different levels of caffeine?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's really on how much you roast it. Like dark roast actually has less caffeine, believe it or not. People think it's a stronger cup of coffee if it's a dark cup of coffee. It's not. Lighter roasts are actually, they're less time in the roasting. It affects the bean less. The flavor is different, and you get more caffeine. I'm wearing this is a Black Rifle jacket.
You got the Black Rifle. You got the Fuji Match shirt on.
Yeah.
I love those guys.
Yeah, they're great. They did my garage.
I like their gis, the Fuji gis, but they fall off my ass, man. They don't fit me right. Yeah, I got the wrong ass. You got the wrong ass for a Fuji gi.
What gi do you use?
I like. I've got a bunch of old Atomic gis that are.
Atomas are great.
They're still in business.
Yeah,
they're great gis. But that's my favorite thing. You travel to a new city, you go train, and you buy a gi.
Nice.
And then every now and then they don't wave the mat fee, and then you're like, oh, fuck yourself. I'm never coming back here. I bought a $170 gi, and you didn't wave the mat fee?
People are like, this is obscure talk here, kids.
Wow.
Your coffee thing, if you're really into it, you get into the flavors and you get into drinking it black. I used to always add cream to my coffee, and I still do if I get Starbucks, because no offense, Starbucks, but generally speaking, their black coffee does not taste that good. A lot of it is like overcooked and burnt.
I read that Howard Schultz's biography, And it like turned me into a huge Starbucks fan because the guy's just so inspirational. You know, he
Oh,
like
he's the guy
brought
who started
coffee.
it?
He brought coffee culture to America. Like, I mean, coffee didn't exist here before. Like the espresso
Yeah.
culture and espresso bars. He just, you know, for whether you like the coffee or don't or whatever you say, it's really phenomenal what he's
Well,
done.
they have that one machine. If you go to that one machine, what's it called? A clover?
Yeah, like sucks the coffee.
Yeah. What is that called?
Yeah.
Is that a clover?
Yeah, but I think Starbucks like bought them all, right?
Yes.
Because they were like,
Yeah.
this is too good. Nobody
Yes.
else can have this.
He partnered with
Oh, okay.
it's part of his book. He like found this guy that was doing this thing and he was like, I want to partner with you and bring this to the world. It's like
It's a genius piece of kit. There was a Starbucks near my house in California that had one, and I used to always get that. I would drink black. But other than that, I just pour some cream in there, and it's good enough. But I generally like a dark roast black coffee, and I've gotten – it's a thing that's like you get accustomed to the flavor and the taste. Yeah, that's the machine.
Yeah.
It's really wild. Like you pour the beans in there, and then you have to kind of whisk it and stir it. And there's some sort of a vacuum it is called a clover, right? And there's a vacuum process that creates the coffee, and it's the perfect temperature coffee. And then you got this weird hockey puck of grounds that come to the top, and then they just sort of scrape that hockey
yeah,
puck
it's got
off.
their little squeegee.
It's amazing.
But this
Perfect.
is Matt and I have this conversation all the time because I'm like, you know, part of coffee culture at a coffee bar is the like theater of it all.
Yes.
And so when you go to coffee, but then I'm like, we're writing this cookbook, and I'm like, dude, can we just actually make coffee and taste it all these different ways and try and break down what's really important? Like, do I gotta steep the beans and then wait 10 minutes and then start again and get the rest of the water in there? Do I have to, you know, is that a blooming process really matter? Like, how long before I grind the beans? And we came to the conclusion that like, some of the things are, and look, if you got a morning tradition that includes, you know, putting on your monocle and like putting on your bow tie, and fucking hand grinding your beans,
That's
your pince in there. But for me, we were like, actually, fresh grinding your beans makes a huge difference. And then I love a pour over coffee, and blooming the coffee matters. Like getting it wet first, and then putting a little more water in afterwards, so it has some time. So you know what I'm talking about?
No, explain that.
So what Matt wrote the recipe in the cookbook, but basically it's like, you know, an old school glass drip coffee maker actually makes really great coffee, like an old bun machine, where the drip comes down slow, so it gets the ground coffee wet, and it gives it a chance to like absorb the water, and then the flavor to filter out. Whereas if you just pour all the water over dry beans right away,
Like a French press.
it doesn't. Well, French press, it steeps it in there, right?
Right.
Like French press, you pour it in, you let it steep in there, and then you strain
Plunge
it
it.
out. But a lot of people, when they do like a pour over coffee or whatever they're doing, they just put the beans in their filter, ground beans in their filter, pour the hot water over, and let it drain through, and you leave a lot of the flavor behind. Whereas if you get it wet, let it sit for a minute, and then pour the rest of the water through, you get more extraction of the flavor.
So when you say get it wet, like how wet?
Well, I put 20% of the water in. So like for me, I do 21 grams of coffee and 350 grams of water. And
Jesus.
that's an 8 hour.
Very specific.
Well, everything is this way. I'm a psycho about everything I do. I mean, salting meat, I do it by the percentage weight. Everything's percentage weight for me.
Really? You don't just like salt bay it? And
No. I mean, I do the salt bay after I weigh it first, you know, obviously. No, everything for me is that's the way you get great consistency, and that's the way you can really figure out what you did wrong and get it better is by adjusting it incrementally, right? Like, so that 21 grams of ground coffee for you know whatever it is, a full size cup of coffee. This is a beautiful. Do I get to keep this?
Oh
mug?
yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that a kind I just
Yeah.
offered that to
No,
myself.
no. It's for you. Yeah, it's for
I like
100%.
this mug.
It's for you.
Thank you. That would be a great. Thank you. I'll
You're
drink my
welcome.
coffee and look at you
All right.
every day.
Beautiful. I'll get weird.
It's handsome. But so I take the first 100 grams of water and I pour it over. And then I go and I take I do some of my morning activities. Like before I start the shower, and then I come back and I finish the coffee with the other
How much
26
time in
grams.
between?
Depends upon what I had for dinner the night before, really.
Oh,
It's
so
like
you take a
Yeah,
shit.
take a shit, and then I
Yeah.
come back and I'm finished. But you
So
know,
like 15 minutes?
yeah, it could be any amount of time. It's just really it should it'll. I don't like to drink my coffee super hot, so I don't mind that extra time to cool it down a bit. But I think you just want to give it about 2 minutes for the coffee to bloom, for the whatever, you know. There are scientists that would explain like the starches are absorbing the water, which is allowing them to release. Because if you think about pouring coffee over, it's like little ground pebbles of coffee beans. You pour the water over, and you want the water to have a chance to leach out the flavor that's inside of the ground. And like espresso is really fast, and you grind it really, really fine, right? Whereas maybe French press is going to steep for quite a while, so you grind it quite a bit coarser. And so pour over maybe is somewhere in between, but it still needs a few seconds to steep.
But that's what you prefer, the pour over.
Yeah, I'm a pour over guy.
I had a guy on my podcast many years ago, Peter Giuliano. Is that how you say his last name? He is like a legit coffee expert. Like I just started kind of getting into coffee, and I was like, well, there's got to be a guy out there that really knows coffee. And I got this guy on, and he gave me he's like a fanatic.
What's his? Does he own a coffee company, or is he?
I don't remember.
Coffee Science Foundation?
Science. And
This guy's a real coffee.
Oh,
Coffee
he
Specialty
really is.
Association?
He knows so much.
go.
But one of the things that he explained was that all coffee comes from Ethiopia. And that this idea of Colombian coffee and that coffee in South America, it was brought to South America from Ethiopia.
Wow.
And then they had to deal with a bunch of issues like coffee rust, like mold growing on coffee and stuff like that, because Ethiopia is a very arid climate. And they would just dry the beans out in the sun. But you couldn't do that in these very moist South American climates, so that they had to come up with a completely different method of processing the
Processing and
coffee.
curing the beans. Interesting.
Very interesting, because when you think about coffee, a lot of times people think of Colombia, right? You think of like Juan Valdez and the Colombian coffee, and I mean there was commercials when we were kids of the guy with the donkey.
And
Remember?
yeah, well, absolutely. The can.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
great.
yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
the
everybody's
can.
got that can. I put
Yeah.
my money in there.
But it all came from Ethiopia.
One of Bob Marley's kids got a coffee company in Jamaican coffee.
Oh, really?
And I don't want to advertise it. He stiffed me with the bill at a restaurant.
Really?
I was like, you're so rich. And you just jammed on
What?
the bill, dude. I was eating with him. We were eating dinner together. And then he was like, yeah, I got to go. I was like, oh. The bill came and I was like, damn, this guy's got so much dough.
And he didn't even offer to pay?
He was out. He was out. Blame it on the
Interesting.
marijuana, I guess.
Well, there's a little bit of that.
Dine and dash.
Maybe
is
cut the guy
good
some
excuse.
slack.
Good excuse.
But
Good
he
coffee.
told you he was leaving, right?
Yeah, but then he gave me like a pound of coffee a couple weeks later. He was like, "You should put this in your restaurant." I was like, "Oh, homie, if you wanted to, you gotta pick up
Send me $1,000.
pick up your portion." That was like $38.
Oh, you're complaining about $38?
I'm a
You're
Jew
really
from New York. So I
serious about
remember
that.
every penny of that's ever been stiffed.
What did you guys go to eat?
Oh man, where was I? I was with.
What were you eating?
I can't tell you because it would betray the restaurant that I was in and the folks that I was with, and they would be really upset. Like this is again like 11 million people are gonna be Googling this thing. I'm gonna get hate mail.
Okay, I
It's gonna be a
understand.
thing.
I understand, but
Is it 11 million people?
there's a lot.
Do you know them all? But yeah,
I don't think about it. I try not to think about
Do
it,
you
otherwise
really?
I'd be weirded out by this conversation. If you thought about the amount
How many
of
people know that I take a shit between when I put the water in the coffee at the beginning?
Don't think about it. Don't think about the numbers that are listening. It'll fuck up the experience.
It doesn't bother me.
Good. It seems to not be bothering you at all.
But there's a pen and paper here, which makes me feel like that's my.
But occasionally, sometimes
take notes.
like mine is like scattered with like little things that I'm supposed to remember, and I rarely check. But there's like a few people that I've booked because of conversations that I've had with people.
yeah.
On
You take a
podcasts.
note. You want to
Yeah,
get back
I write
to
it down.
something.
Yeah. Like I don't want to interrupt you, but I don't want to stop your flow. But I have a thought for later. How long did this book take to write?
We spent a year on this book, Matt and I. The writing, because there's 120,000 words in there. So listen, like you work in a restaurant, you teach people how to cook for a living, and the way I think about it is, most cookbooks explain how to do an individual task, but don't really take the time to explain the why behind what you're doing is important. And kind of like if you lead a horse to water and you beat it over the head, you can't keep it alive necessarily, but if you teach it to drink or fish, it'll like feed itself for years. You know that saying?
I think you fucked that thing up, but I know
Whatever.
what you're saying.
You teach a fish to ride a horse. If you give people if you explain the why behind what they're doing, it gives them the like entrepreneurial authority to make decisions in the kitchen and gives them the confidence to like cook without being so. People are scared a lot of times of changing one thing because they think they're going to ruin the dish because they don't understand what they're doing.
Right.
So we were like, we want to not just write a cookbook, but we had this column together where it was 100 questions for my friend the chef, and it was like, I got a question. Can you explain what's going on here so I really can understand it? And this was an expansion of that where we were like, we take a question, we have an article that explains what's really going on. And then the recipe for me is very delicious, but the real goal of the recipe is to like help illustrate. For instance, like you go to the supermarket, there are all these different types of olive oil. They're like $30 for a little bottle, and then this one's like a gallon for $10. Like, why are they different? I don't really understand. Am I supposed to do something different with them? But as an American, we're just like, yo, the most expensive is the best. So I'm just going to buy the most expensive one.
I always wanted to know about that. Like, what is the difference in olive oils?
So there are, depending upon the extraction and the yield from the crop and the real estate price of where it's being grown, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The different olive oils have different strengths, different flavor, strengths of flavor. So some of them are very, very light flavored and neutral, and they're great for salad dressings and for cooking with. And some of them are extraordinarily pungent, like can be spicy and fruity, and they're really like a seasoning for finishing something with. So we explain that, how that process works, why a $30 olive oil, if you were to, $30 for a small bottle of olive oil, if you were to cook with it, it's just like a big waste. Or make a salad dressing, it can clash with the lemon. It'd be very spicy, bitter, and unpleasant. And then we illustrate it with a recipe that says, hey, we got this pasta where we're going to saute the garlic in the light flavored olive oil. And then at the end, we're going to finish it with this finishing expensive olive oil. So you can really see, like, now I understand. So now, from then on, you're going to understand how to use this ingredient, and you'll never have a question again. You'll never have to go back to the recipe, if that makes sense.
How does one know? Like, is it based on price? Like, how do you know, like, what's like a more robust olive
it's
oil?
$10 a liter basically for the lighter flavored stuff, and $30 a liter is the expensive stuff. Is basically what it comes down to for restaurant pricing. So, you see a bottle of, Colavita or whatever it is, and it's a big bottle for $8, and it says it's always extra virgin olive oil that I'm using, but it's the less expensive stuff has got a bigger yield, like more, they're getting more out of it. It's less concentrated. It's a milder olive oil. Yeah.
And what is like a really good, expensive, strong tasting olive oil? What companies?
There's a company called Laudemio that for me is the number one. It's and like
spell that
Laudemio maybe. It's got a great look. Laudemio. I'm probably. It's like Frescobaldi di Santa Gata de Laudemio. Vediamo le voglio fare un. Oh, I'm not allowed to do it. Oh shit! They told me if you do accents, you're done. No accents.
You can do accents.
Italian accents, okay?
Yeah, I'm Italian.
Who's they? You're not the guy you're not the.
That's okay. Those are my people.
Those are my people.
Oh, wow.
So Laudemio oil.
Right there.
It's so expensive. Look at that. It's like a tiny bottle, but this stuff.
$44 for 16 ounces.
This stuff for me, like. It's like liquid gold, man. There are a lot of great finishing oils out there. And like anything else, it's a seasonal product that gets pressed in the fall, and you got to use that years. If you leave it sitting around, it's not going to be good anymore.
And are you a guy that will sprinkle a little bit of that on a steak and then add some salt to it after you're done?
I love that.
Yeah.
I've the first time like that beefsteak of Fiorentina, the first time I had olive oil and lemon and salt on steak, it was like...
I got obsessed with, before I got this Argentine grill, I got obsessed with watching Italians cook steak over wood. Because there's, believe it or not, and I don't know a fucking word they're saying, because they're just talking in the native tongue over there, and they're cooking these steaks over wood and then eating it and going, oh, with the hands and serving it, and it's pretty amazing. And there's a bunch of restaurants in Florence that specialize in just steak, which you think of steakhouses as being very much an American thing. But in Italy, this is their thing, and they almost universally are cooking over wood. And so I got really into it.
There's I mean, I've definitely had some extraordinary experiences in Tuscany with those steaks, and then in Florence with the steaks, and then, you know, you think, well, maybe it was just because I was like, because you get high on the experience of being there, and you're like, I don't know, was it really that good? That's why I went back to Le Barbecue, because I was like, I don't know, man, that was the first time I ever had it. Like, let me go back, and then you eat it again, you're like, nope. This is really
love.
good. Like, they're doing something special, and that's how I feel about Florence. Like the steaks in Florence, it's something special.
It's a specific type of cow as well, correct?
It's what they call it, the Chianina cow. It's like that. There's that Dario the butcher who made it all famous because he I don't know. He's like reciting from what's that poet? The Dario the butcher's. Anyway, there was a book by a disciple of Mario Batali's who wrote about it and really blew this guy up. And he's this crazy, larger than life character. They're working cows, so they're tough. They're tough if you try and cook them. They're cooked very rare, and it's one of the few instances that you see a thick, tough steak cooked blood rare, and it can be tender, because generally more working cow makes a tougher meat, right? So you got to cook it longer and slower. It's a little counterintuitive. That's why when you see like the grass-fed meat and people talk about it not being that great, it's like you don't really know how to cook it. It's not supposed to be like when you go down to Argentina, you don't necessarily get like a thick steak like you do in America. It's a different way of cooking this specific thing that makes it great for what it is.
I was going to ask you about that. Do you prefer a grain-fed steak or a grass-fed steak?
So, like, if I want a thick-ass ribeye and it's going to be delicious, like American experience, it's a grain-fed steak is the American steak experience that I know and love. The flavor of grass-fed beef is phenomenal, right? And it can
it's
be
like a richer flavor.
It can be
right?
rich and fuller, and you got this. I also really like a toothsome texture on a steak, whereas we put a high. We put a high a price on tenderness here, where here Americans generally. Whereas I like a toothsome steak, and grass-fed can have a great texture, chewy texture, which I like.
Yeah, I don't get that whole need for everything to be something you can eat with your gums.
Well, you got your teeth still.
Yeah, I
give it a couple years.
They make fake teeth, man. You can get new teeth if you lose a tooth. I don't understand this. I think it's a lazy thing, like a not wanting to work even when you're eating.
But America has the greatest meat in the world. I'm a big America guy. Like, I love my country. And I love the food here. I think, I love McDonald's, and I love the fancy. I love it all, man. I just
McDonald's?
I love it all. I
Do you like
eat
filet
it
of fish?
I've never had the filet of fish. My
That's
wife
what I
loves
love.
the filet of fish.
That's
I
what I
can't.
love.
I eat the chicken nuggets. I'm a nugget man.
Oh,
yeah,
God,
with that
it's
barbecue
just
sauce.
Chicken dicks. It's just chicken dicks
I don't
and
think
assholes.
I know this is not part of this podcast, but just so you know, only 3 birds have penises, and chickens are not one of
They
them.
got that cloaca.
But the only 3 birds. Chickens
Yes.
don't have. So there's no chicken penis in a
true.
chicken nugget. Yeah.
Chicken
Not
asshole.
the fact.
Good call. You're right. You got me on a technicality.
If they were ducks,
Ducks have giant dicks.
they're the longest penis of any animal,
and they're corkscrewed like a fucking drill.
and they can become erect and ejaculate in less than a half a second.
Wow.
And they can do flyby. There's a whole book about it.
And unfortunately, almost all duck sex is non-consensual.
And they fly
Yeah.
by and do it, but they never know. It's like it's half a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really something else.
It's
But that's
awful.
why after that's why they took away the penises from the rest of the birds.
Duck is a goddamn delicious bird.
So here's
I
the
had some
thing
duck
about
the other night from a local Chinese restaurant. It was phenomenal.
duck fat is special. The same way the pork fat is
For
special.
fries,
It melts at a low temperature, and it can be very moist. It's like you almost never see cold preparations of meat with a lot of fat, except for pork and duck, because that fat melts at a low temperature, and it gets like. Do you ever have a cold lamb?
yes.
And it can be like kind of waxy.
Mm-hmm.
Cold beef is the same way. The
Yeah.
fat doesn't melt in your mouth. Whereas
I eat a lot of cold beef.
you do?
Yeah, because what I do is I'll cook because I'm on this wacky diet and I don't have a lot of time, so I'll set aside I'll cook 4 or 5 ribeyes, and then I slice them up and I'll put them in a sealed glass Tupperware type deal, and then in the morning I do my training and then I'll eat. And I just pour some hot sauce on a plate and I dip the cold steak into the hot sauce and I eat it.
What kind of hot sauce?
My favorite right now currently is a company called Signor Lechuga out of Brooklyn, and they're fucking phenomenal.
Do you know these guys?
No.
Who's Senior Lechuga out of Brooklyn?
Well, my friend Andrew, who runs Half-Face Blades, he sent me he's a former Navy SEAL who's a knife manufacturer. He makes knives. And he sent me one that let's look at my quote on there. Legit as fuck. Look at that. Look, habanero, onions, reapers, they have all these different flavors. Like Andrew's has, it's got, I think he uses reapers and.
Do you love it super spicy like that?
Yeah.
Oh, you do? You're a real man. I'm like a hot-ish guy.
I like it hot. He has truffles, I think dried tomatoes or something like that. I think that's what he has, but he sent me a giant batch of it. It's phenomenal. It's really delicious. It's got a great taste, but it's also very spicy. And so what I'll do is I'll pour a bunch of it on the plate, and I'll dip these slices of cold steak in, and that's generally like, I would say that's like 80% of the time. That's what I eat for breakfast. So
listen to this. So like, this is Cookbook. We have the last chapter is like project. Some cooking. We're obsessed with cooking shit fast here in America. Like you're like, I gotta cook this, and everything you look online, it's like, yo, how can I make a roast chicken?
10 minute
minutes.
abs.
You're like,
yeah.
you can't make a roast. There's lots of great chicken dishes in 10 minutes. Like roast chicken ain't one of them. And so there's a hot sauce recipe in here. It takes like 3 weeks, and it takes more than that. But you should. You got the book. I really think it's only got 5 ingredients. It's a fermented hot sauce that I've been making for years. I got obsessed with it.
So you make your own hot sauce too?
I make my own hot sauce, and not to sell, man. Just for I used to make it because the meatball shop. I used to do it at the meatball shop, and we got it embargoed by the health department. It was a whole thing.
What happened?
Okay, so I had this commissary kitchen in Brooklyn, and I was fermenting hot sauce, which is, I don't think you're allowed to do this. I did a bunch of research about it, but I knew you weren't allowed to do this, so I labeled it. Man, I don't think you're allowed to say this. I'm going to get in trouble, but that's okay. It's worth it. I labeled it like fermented hand soap, because I thought the health department would come in and be like, oh, he's just like making hand soap. It's like non-edible fermented hand soap. Like it'll be fine. And they were like, what's this? And I was like, oh, it's like hand soap. And they just didn't buy it at all. Like they're like, how stupid do we think you like zero chance. And so they were like, this is hot sauce. They went to every single one of our restaurants. I had like 9 restaurants at the time. And they put an embargo on my hot sauce. I had to like lock it up.
Why? What's wrong with? I don't understand.
Well, because if you're gonna ferment something, they're worried about like bacterial growth, not doing it right, and killing a bunch of people. Which, frankly, I should be concerned about as well.
Yeah, but come on, with hot sauce, is that even a situation? Has anyone ever died from?
Nope. I mean, no one has ever died from fermented. So basically,
overregulation. You could do that in Texas. They wouldn't give a fuck.
Yeah,
they give you a gun too.
People are just dropping dead from hot sauce right and left. They just ultimately, I had to give a sample of it to NYU, and they did like a 3-week incubation, process, and then I got it unembargoed. And so this has now been proven to be safe.
NYU has a fucking hot sauce lab.
They had to put it in an incubator, and they try and grow back like negative bacteria out of it. So they're like, as if you left it in your cupboard.
But isn't that like the whole reason for hot sauce in a lot of climates? Like a lot of that's one of the reasons why Mexico uses a lot of hot sauce. What I was under the impression that those spices actually kill a lot of the bad bacteria. Like, isn't that one of the reasons why they use wasabi in sushi as well?
I think that's a fallacy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think if you have bad meat and you put hot sauce on it, you just get spicy.
I don't mean it that way, but I mean I think that.
No, I think it's actually a fallacy.
For some, yeah. But let's. Can
we look that up?
Yeah, let's Google that, because I remember watching this thing. Maybe I was reading something where a Japanese sushi chef was talking about how foolish Americans are to eat sushi without wasabi, and that wasabi actually helps protect you from the potential bad bacteria of the sushi.
I imagine a world where that Japanese man believed what he was saying was true and said it with great enthusiasm.
But I always thought, like, if you think about places where it's like hot temperature, like.
But they'd also grow. That's where chilies grow. Chilies grow where it's hot.
It kills a specific bacteria, H. pylori, which can cause digestive problems, but it doesn't kill all bacteria and it doesn't kill parasites or anything like that.
Well, yeah. But, okay, so some bacteria. So they probably figured it out in some place.
Yeah.
So there's probably something to it. Now, is that just hot peppers? Like, all hot peppers? Or
This says, and this thing I looked up, specifically Japanese wasabi.
Oh.
So it said other things you might be getting a mixture of.
This is what CNN has
You're
an
gonna be
issue
getting
with
real
right
wasabi.
here because he's like,
Yeah.
listen, you're fine. As long as you eat the chili, you'll be fine, dude.
I don't think I said that.
Yeah, this says sadly you're not getting real wasabi at your average restaurant because it's difficult to make and very expensive. So it's a mixture of horseradish with green food coloring. Yeah.
Yeah, Philip said that too. Philip was the head chef at Sushi Bar ATX.
Is he opening? When is he
does it.
opening his sushi?
He's got another place that's opening up very soon. I believe it's going to be in March, and I will most certainly announce it on my Instagram and fuck up his entire organization.
And, actually, so the very next thing talks about a myth about mixing wasabi with soy sauce, and the very first sentence is, "Don't do it. Wasabi's original germ-killing purpose is no longer valid. You're not getting real wasabi."
Can I ask where is this like a where you're reading this?
I went to it's grunge.com, and it's sushi myths that are very stupid.
Okay, let's go with hot, spicy food, like hot peppers. Try that. Google that same thing.
So I typed in wasabi. Does wasabi kill bacteria? And
Right, but let's just go Google hot peppers kill bacteria, like spicy peppers, because I think that was what I had heard first. And I think Bourdain might have been the one who told me that.
I mean, I never speak poorly about the dead, so I would never.
Capsicums, there you go, including chilies and other hot peppers, are in the middle of the antimicrobial pack, killing or inhibiting up to 75% of bacteria, while pepper of the white or black variety inhibits 25% of bacteria. So that is true. So spicy food does kill some bacteria, 75% of bacteria.
Wow, man!
But look at this. Spicy food really does not kill bacteria in another one.
Wow.
What are the fucking...
See? So I was just...
Yeah.
It's complicated. Who's right?
I think that we get to tie. We get to tie. We both get to live to fight another day. That's a big. I love tying.
But look at this. Does spicy food kill bacteria? Yes. Hot foods kill bacteria. There are two main reasons why spicy foods kill bacteria.
The first thing you read comes from a 1998 article.
No, right below that.
I know, but I'm saying the first thing you read.
Oh, I say in 1998 they thought that. What about that one before that, Food Vision, that what says
Right here?
it does? Yeah, click see when that article is. 2021. It says it does.
Yeah, but like this.
So what are they basing
I know,
it
but
on?
that's why I said it's like a blog, so.
That's the problem,
This is
right?
just fake news.
God
100%
damn it.
fake news.
So
Sorry to
scroll,
say.
go back to what you just saw, and scroll down a little bit. So it says, yes, hot foods kill bacteria. The two main reasons why hot foods kill bacteria: heat from the spices killing off any harmful bacteria in your mouth. Some of these spices contain an ingredient called capsaicin. I always say that wrong. Which can help stop harmful stomach bugs like E. coli and Salmonella. Does spicy food kill stomach bacteria? Some of the spices contain an ingredient called capsaicin, which helps. They're repeating themselves.
So I wouldn't go with this.
This is
It's
a
like-
shitty blog.
All right, that's I know.
Yeah, they're writing
AI
like
could have written
assholes.
it. I wouldn't.
I think you should go to
Might be.
Harvard EDU.
I would never pull that
and
up.
talk about.
It's probably Russian disinformation. They're trying to get us
Probably.
to have food
Yeah,
poisoning.
that's exactly what it is.
Go to Half-Face Blades Senor Lechuga sauce. Because this is my absolute favorite. He just sent me a giant jar of it. And this stuff, I'm pretty sure it has, I think it has dried tomatoes in it too. I think it has like Reapers.
Truffle Reaper, it's called.
Yeah, go to it so we can
What's
see.
up? What's up?
Oh, sorry. That's it right there.
Wow.
Yeah. Heirloom tomatoes. So it's got heirloom tomatoes. It's got winter truffle and Reapers. That stuff is the shit. That is my absolute favorite hot sauce.
I'd love to try this.
Oh, I'll get you some. I'll have some sent
Truffle
to you.
infusion, red onion,
100%.
green mushroom. Wow, he's got a lot of ingredients.
His stuff is so good, man. I'm telling you, it's both spicy. I don't like just want, like that's like, they have that. No offense to the show, but that hot wing show where you eat is like it's hot. The wings
Yeah, but it's
you can
hysterical.
it's funny.
Have you been on that show?
No, none.
It's hysterical. Well, why
I
not?
don't want to answer questions while I'm crying. It doesn't
It's
make
so
any
funny.
sense. I'm sure
There's
it is.
some of those
I talk
guys.
enough. I talk enough to not do anybody else's show. But when you do like the flavor of something and it also has a kick, that's what I like. And that's
Yeah.
why I like the Senor Lechugas.
I think that that's something that people lose sight of, and I could not agree with you more emphatically.
Yeah.
Like the spice of these chilies, especially when you're talking about some like a habanero, which is so spicy, it's got a really special like floral, fruity flavor.
Yes.
And then people just want to kill it with the spice. You're like, yo, man, it's a seasoning.
Right.
It's not
right.
just for the heat. Like we could just put cayenne pepper on there if you just want the
You
heat.
lose something. You lose something by just, it's like a macho thing, I think. Guys want to just like,
Although some people are born with a different, like my stepsister, my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, Stephanie, she loves spice so much that I'm like, there's something about your tongue that's different. She likes spice so much that as a little kid, she heard that her aunt had pepper spray in her purse, and this is a legitimately true story. She went down after everyone went to sleep at like 7 years old and sprayed herself in the face with pepper spray. Woke the whole, and she just, everybody's like, what did they do? What did they bring you to the hospital? They're like, no, they laughed at me. They just laughed at me.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah, so she likes spice in a way where I'm like, it's not just liking spice. Like your tongue is not picking up the same sensitivity that my tongue is.
I think you're 100% correct about that because my kids vary wildly. And my wife has a sensitivity to spicy food, and I love spicy food. So I have one daughter that hates spicy food, doesn't want any spice, and I have another one who's a little savage who has Senor Lechuga,
And just
she
pours
puts it. She'll like pour it on, like we'll have like chicken, and she'll dip like drumsticks into this hot sauce and be chewing on it. I'm like, are you okay? Like in the beginning, it freaked me out. But, she's fucking 11. And when she was like 9, she was doing this. I was like, this is wild. This kid
is concerning.
This kid's a savage. I thought she was like playing it up. Like she was going to start crying. But nope. She just like, this is bad. And she laughed. She's like, it's not even that spicy. Like something's going on with her mouth. It's very different than my middle daughter.
My main problem with the spicy is that I like it from here to here. But like,
Your asshole.
Oh my God, dude. The gift that keeps on giving. That snake bite is I just can't do it. I mean,
It is a weird feeling when your asshole's on fire from the food you ate in your mouth. Like, what's going on inside? That's the other thing. There's this guy named Paul Saladino. He goes by the name Carnivore MD, and he's a firm believer that most of the foods that people eat are not necessarily good for you to thrive on. And he believes that like meat and fruit are the safest bets. And he thinks that hot peppers are bullshit. He's like, it's really not good for you. They create leaky gut. They create inflammation. Like when you're taking in that spice, that is basically defense chemicals from these plants so that you don't eat them. That's what they want. They want you to not eat them. So you bite into it. It's fucking horrendously painful, and that keeps animals from eating them.
but then at the same time, those same spicy, birds don't have a sensitivity to spice, and so the flowers are designed in such a way as to attract the birds to eat them to spread their seeds. So you're like, oh, man, I'm not a botanist, and I'm not an evolutionary scientist, but like clearly. There's a lot of information we don't know out there, and there have been. I mean, talking about the gluten stuff, and they're making their leaps and bounds every day. They're discovering new information about the way our bodies work and process food, and we're gonna get to the bottom of it very soon because there's a lot of bullshit out there. I mean, there's so much bullshit when it comes to food, and it's so annoying. And like, my mom is a real hippie. She eats she's only mashed organic food. And then, we all made fun of her. And 50 years later, turns out she was right. And the hippies won. And you should eat only organic, healthy, natural foods. And you shouldn't be eating all this chemical crap. So I feel like over the course of the next however many years, we're going to start to really see how our body works, unlock these. And then, some of the shit will be right and some of it will be.
Have you eaten in Italy?
I have.
Do you notice the difference in the way your body feels when you eat their pasta?
Okay, so this is a big myth. This is a big myth that I got to debunk.
How so?
Okay, well, I don't really know what I'm talking about, so I want to start with that as a caveat. And then I want to get into a lot of the pasta made in Italy is made with American wheat. A lot of the pasta that we think of as Italian, they actually import a lot of their wheat. So I don't believe that genetically the wheat is, and I don't know this. Like, we need to get, who's the scientist? I was just on some show the other day and I said something and they were like, well, Neil deGrasse Tyson was on here last week and he said, and I was
He
like,
doesn't know jack shit about wheat.
I was like, that guy doesn't.
But my friend Maynard Keenan, the lead singer of Tool, he owns he also owns Merkin Vineyards, so he makes his own wine. But he also
isn't a Merkin a male?
It's a girl. It's a toupee for your vagina.
Unisex.
Is it? Maybe.
I mean, I could definitely wear.
Yeah. Well, that's him. He's a silly boy. He likes to.
So he did that on purpose.
He's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu too, by the way.
I'm not going to talk shit.
Yeah, he's a legit athlete and a real martial artist and a great guy. Just a genius person. But anyway, my point is, he told me that what was going on is, and he makes pasta and makes breads, and his osteria. He has a really great osteria in Old Town, Scottsdale, Arizona, outside
What's
of
it called?
Phoenix. A Merkin Osteria. It's really great pizza, really great food. He's just an awesome guy, and his wine is fantastic too. He's got a lot of really interesting experimental wines. Like he has an experimental champagne that he made, and great stuff. But anyway, he told me that they used to have wheat that was essentially lower yield and it had less complex glutens in it. And through manipulation over the years of just selective growing, they've developed a wheat that is a higher yield per acre. But the problem with it is it's like a denser, thicker wheat with more complex glutens. And with some people, they have more difficulty in processing that wheat. Now, he said when you get wheat that is from Europe, that is heirloom wheat, and he likes a mixture of them, by the way. He doesn't necessarily, he's like for the bite and the chew, he likes a little bit of the more complex wheat that people have a harder time digesting. But his take is just have it in moderation. Don't eat it all day, every day, but eat it occasionally.
The problem is that as a chef, I get very hung up on this gluten-free thing. It's very difficult, because you just get people coming into your restaurants with their allergies, and 99% of it is bullshit. And so I get a visceral negative reaction when anybody has, and I put a smile on my face and I'm like, I serve people and I want them to have a great experience. So I don't want to be rude, but I'm just like,
have you ever done one of those food allergy tests? Because you said you have allergies, right? To hay fever and stuff like that. You should.
I know that I'm allergic to gluten. I know. How could I not? You should smell it's
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I think that's real. And I think, listen, nobody loves pasta or pizza more than me. I fucking love it. When I'm eating a big bowl of pasta, I'm a glutton. I eat way too much of it, whether it's lasagna or spaghetti, and that's how I get fat. But
that Felix is 1 block away from my house.
Oh, yeah.
1 block away. I live 1 block away.
That is the best restaurant. That is literally one of the absolute best restaurants on planet Earth.
That guy makes pasta.
Oh, my God, does he make pasta. And it's so good. It's so good.
He also charges you for it.
Yes, should.
That was $100.
Fucking, you're on fucking Abbot Kinney in the middle of. It's expensive over there, even though there's tents everywhere. Point is, that place, I'm eating pasta. Fuck my diet, But it's for the most part, my body doesn't react the best when I have a lot of bread.
I feel like that is the Eastern European kind of body shape of a beer belly. Mm-hmm. Is must be some sort of gluten, sensitivity or whatever, or we get it from that, and we all look the same, and it's a great look, and I support it. I'm into it. My wife loves me; she loves my belly, and I love it. I would have a hard time giving it up, man. Not for a
I don't
six-pack.
give it up. I don't give it up, but I've cut it way back. Way back. Like the other night, I had tacos. We had some CM Smokehouse, another fantastic place in town. Nick, the owner of the comedy club that we work at, he went, Vulcan Gas Company, he went to CM Smokehouse and brought a ton of fucking insane tacos back to the green room. Oh my God, it was good. And wasn't going to leave them there. I had to indulge.
With wheat flour tortillas.
Wheat flour tortillas
that's a
that are cooked in beef tallow, apparently.
So good.
Yes, it was so good. It was phenomenal.
Because in California, we're mostly corn.
I like corn too.
Tortillas.
I love corn tortillas too. I love authentic Mexican food. I'm a giant fan of like real legit Mexican food.
So I talk about this all the time, trying to like figure it out. Like, Mexican food is one of the greatest cuisines in the world. You know, like, why does a country develop this amazingly complex food? Like, why do they have a relationship to food that allows them to make it one of the things that they put their energies into? Like, you know, you look at Japan versus Japan and China and Vietnam, and then you look at other countries in the near vicinity, and you're like, wow, these cuisines are so spectacular. And like, you know, you look at Mexico and you're like, why is the food here so good?
Yeah.
What is it? Italy, I mean, different areas in the world have cultures that are surrounded by food and love for food, but like, why is Mexican food so good? Why is it breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Is it the confluence of ingredients? Is it the people's passion for it? I don't know.
Well, there's so much going on in Mexico, right? First of all, there's a giant emphasis on family. That is a big part of Mexico, and also a big part of Italy, which is maybe like one of the reasons why I'm drawn to it. It's because like my grandmother used to cook. She used to make her own pasta. She made her own sauce. They grew the tomatoes in the backyard. I mean, I remember to this day my grandmother rolling out the flour and rolling out the dough to make pasta, make lasagna, and make all different kinds of pasta. And there's something about those meals where the whole family's together just going, oh, this is incredible. Like, it's like there's an emphasis in a lot of Latin cultures, like Italian being one of them and Mexico being another one of them, where like the emphasis is around these family meals. And there's something about Mexican cuisine that is, like I said, I'm a giant fan of spicy, which is also a factor for sure, right? Because like a fantastic carne asada with like a little bit of a kick to it, and it's like there's something about like mole, delicious flavors, and I think there's so many different exciting flavors that come out of Mexican restaurants and Mexican cuisine. And there's a guy in America that's like the guy out of Chicago, you know, Rick Bayless.
Yeah, Rick Bayless. He was an anthropologist doing his master's degree in Mexico, and was like, fuck this. I give it up. This is so good. And he just devoted his whole life to studying and promoting and cooking Mexican food.
He was an anthropologist?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He's such a smart guy, and when he talks about food, it's just so inspiring. You know?
Yeah.
And
contagious.
he knows and the towns and where it came from. He takes the scientific approach. Have you seen the Pasta Grannies Instagram?
No.
It's like all grandmothers in Italy making pasta by hand, and they're 100 years old, and it's fantastic.
That
it's
sounds
hysterical.
great. The Pasta Grannies.
Pasta Grannies. It's great.
I follow Rick Bayless on Instagram. Oh my God, those ladies all look like my grandmother.
And they're all just like, you know, making pasta.
Oh yeah, there it is. Look at her go.
You know, these hands.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. Look at that.
But Rick Bayless, I saw him speak a bunch of years back in Chicago, and I was so inspired by that guy. And his food is as good as it should be. Like it's not just that he writes about food or talks about food. His restaurants are fantastic.
What is his restaurant in Chicago called?
He's
XO something.
I'm losing the name, and it's embarrassing because I should know.
It's Jamie will find it. But he took a lot of shit where people are saying he's culturally appropriating Mexican culture by cooking Mexican food. It's like, my God, why are you even concentrating on that? The man loves this food. He's promoting Mexican cuisine with honor and respect and dignity and passion. He's so enthusiastic about it. It's only helping people. There's nothing this man is doing that is in any way, shape, or form wrong or disingenuous. Not in any way. The guy worships Mexican cuisine. I mean, I was watching a video on his Instagram the other day where he was talking about like going into a Mexican supermarket in Chicago. So he's like showing like all these incredible ingredients that he's getting from the supermarket and how he's going to use them in his meals.
I feel like I was just talking to my buddy about that yesterday. Like how do we, you know, my name is Daniel. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Like, I just want to be a good guy out there, and the world is constantly changing. Stuff is evolving. So like, I need the rules. I don't want to be in trouble for something when the rules change out from under me. So like, if someone could help me to understand better exactly where the line between appropriation and...
You can't let them do that. Here it's called Frontera Grill. You can't ask that
Frontera
question because the people that are going to answer are assholes. The people that are going to be the ones that want to tell you what you can and can't do are assholes. Because generally speaking, reasonable people are going to understand exactly what you're doing. You're not an Italian guy, but you're making pizza. There's not a fucking Italian that gives a shit about that.
Well, I get nervous. That's what I got. I was like, yo, man, am I going to get in trouble? Because I'm like...
That's my people. They don't fucking care. If your pizza's great, they love it. They'll say, oh, it's fucking Daniel makes the best pizza. They don't give a shit, and thank God they don't. It's not the people of that culture. It would be a few really noisy people that just want to get attention and just want to be negative and complain and just shit on people for no fucking reason. And it's just because they know that it's a hot button. You can press it and you can get attention. And for Rick Bayless, it didn't work. No one really cares.
Because he's a genuinely,
You watch his videos. The guy fucking loves Mexico. He loves it. I mean, I
can understand someone being like, I don't know why this guy's the foremost expert when he's like some white guy from Chicago. Like
he's not.
He's not the foremost expert.
He's just an expert. He's just a guy who loves the cuisine. There's probably 1,000 people that know much more about it that live in Mexico. But here's a guy speaking English right there that's promoting this amazing, delicious food, and he has a great restaurant. You can go enjoy his food. But the fucking thing about cultural appropriation that's so crazy is we live in a giant melting pot of cultures, and that's one of the cool things about America. Look, we're both experts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? I mean, we literally learned a martial art that was created in South America, or was
stolen
really
from Japan.
Stolen from Japan.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes,
improved
quote,
upon
unquote,
though. For sure, the difference between the way the art was practiced before, when Count Maeda came to Brazil, versus when Helio Gracie and Carlos Gracie and perfected it, when they went over it and really worked on the ground game and concentrated more on the ground game, and then when Hickson and Hoyce and all these people took it out to the rest of the world, it's a different martial art. And it's a martial art that has come out of these cultures melting together. And that's beautiful. It's not negative in any way, shape, or form. We represent it. We both of us are black belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I have a black belt in Taekwondo, which is Korean. I mean, we're involved in this melting pot of ideas.
In all fairness, you would definitely see that, like, think about, like, the cultural appropriation of playing cowboys versus Indians, where you're like, okay, that's insensitive for somebody to be like, let me play this game where I'm pretending to like shoot Indians, when you're like, dude, these are Native Americans that were slaughtered while we just like
that's a different story. So that's like pretending to be Holocaust guards.
Exactly. There is clearly a line where some stuff, like there's a gray area maybe, but there's definitely some stuff where you're like, yeah, man, like that's not okay.
Well, here's why that's not okay, right? Also, like, even Germans shouldn't be playing Holocaust guards. Right? Like, you shouldn't be playing a concentration camp guard if you're fucking German, right? Because it's a horrific part of our culture. The idea of cowboys and Indians, the problem was in movies.
Are Germans playing Holocaust guards like a thing?
No, they're not.
Oh, I was like,
I'm saying you can't.
Yeah,
but
you can't.
But when we think of cowboys and Indians, we don't think of genocide.
Yeah.
We don't think of the fact that this entire culture of Native Americans was eradicated off of a continent, which it
actually real life was. Yeah.
But we think of it in terms of the films that glorified this sort of Western trek that the settlers
Manifest
did.
Destiny.
Yeah. It's a sort of, but that's a good point in that we're talking about a different thing, because you're talking about tragic, historic. Like, if you made a funny movie about the Trail of Tears, people would be like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Or just perpetuating some sort of a negative stereotype about a people where you're like, yo, man, like, I can completely understand where there's a line. And I'm like,
right, but you don't get that from being an American person who loves Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
But there's a difference between being like, I'm going to open a Chinese restaurant because I love Chinese food and I want to cook the food and I want to learn about it. And I'm going to open a Chinese restaurant where, my waiters have to use a fake Chinese accent and pretend to be Chinese. So you'd be like, well, one is inappropriate, one is.
Yes.
Like, there's a line.
Very, very different. Very different.
But the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu thing, I don't have any. I mean, that's like that. First of all, the evolution and it being better was put to bed, years ago, because did it. They were like,
Yeah.
let's get those two guys in the ring and see who wins. And then
I mean, really, it's the most important moments in the history of martial arts, really. And then Horian created the UFC. The UFC was created by Horian Gracie, and he did it literally as an infomercial for the effectiveness of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he decided to do it with his brother Royce, who wasn't even the best guy in the family. Royce openly admits that his brother Rickson would tap him left and right. But Rickson was like the nuclear bomb. It's like, we're going to go in, we're going to shoot you with bullets for a little bit, and then if this doesn't work out, if somebody beats Royce, then we're going to bring in Rickson.
That game that I used to play of whatever Wing Chun versus American boxing, like I wonder, and then UFC came about, and we were just like, oh, okay.
I went through my own version of it because I was a black belt in Taekwondo. I won the state championships and the U.S. Open and a bunch of tournaments, and I thought I was pretty good at fighting. And then I started kickboxing, and I'm like, oh my God, like getting punched, it's so much easier for them to punch me in the face. Like, it's like, and you're trapped in a ring, like you can't move around. Like Taekwondo was mostly on mats, right? You weren't fighting in rings, so you could kind of get the fuck out of the way. It was like when you're engaging because you want to, you don't get cornered. So as soon as there was like a way where someone could corner me, and then I realized, okay, there's a lot of effectiveness in learning how to punch. So I learned how to kickbox. Then I got into Muay Thai. And I was like, oh my God, leg kicks are horrific. Like, why doesn't anybody else kick the legs? Because Taekwondo, you can only kick above the waist. Kickboxing, like American-style kickboxing, was all above the waist. And there's a very famous fight with Rick Rufus, who was Rick the Jack Rufus, who's one of the best kickboxers of all time. And he fought this guy from Thailand. I forget the gentleman's name, but there's a video of it, and it's called The Fight That Changed Kickboxing, I believe it is. It's kickboxing versus Muay Thai. It's Rick the Jack Rufus, and he hurt this guy early in the fight, but this dude just kept chopping at his legs.
Knockout.
And eventually he crumpled to the ground, and his legs were destroyed, and Rick became a practitioner of Muay Thai, and his brother Duke is one of the best kickboxing coaches on earth right now, and he runs his academy in Milwaukee. But this was like this progression of trying to figure out what worked. So at first I realized, well, you got to learn how to use your hands. You got to learn kickboxing. And then it's like, oh, Jesus, you got to learn how to kick legs, and you got to learn how to check leg kicks. And then it was like, no, you got to learn how to not get strangled. Because then in the early 90s, the UFC came around in 93. And I remember watching that going, oh, no. And then training jiu-jitsu, the first time training it, realizing how helpless I was. I was like, God, I spent so much time learning all these things.
They just figured it out. Like, nobody knows what to do once we get them to the ground. So we're just
yes, but now there's guys who can do everything, and that's the beauty of what mixed martial arts is. What mixed martial arts is, it's like you can't just know jiu-jitsu now, because you won't be able to take certain guys down, and they'll fuck you up standing up, and certain techniques that even we used to think were kind of useless in Taekwondo. When people started doing the UFC and getting taken down, now people can utilize those techniques as long as they know other things. Like there was a brutal knockout in Bellator this past weekend with a spinning back kick to the body. I don't know if you ever,
like a roundhouse kick that you would
spinning back kick. It's a spin. You spin and you hit with the bottom of the heel. Roundhouse is like Thai kick. Roundhouse is like standing here, you kick like this. Spinning back kick is you turn and spin with the body.
Backwards.
See if you can find. Go to the Bellator Instagram page. This was one of the most brutal spinning back kick KOs I've ever seen. He fought this guy Rencounter Chase Rencounter.
I think there were a couple of Henzo guys in that fight.
Chance Rencounter.
Weren't there a couple of Henzo guys in? Wasn't Neiman?
Yes, Neiman Gracie. He lost a decision in the finals against a really tough wrestler.
He's a great wrestler. Neiman.
So watch this. Back this up. So watch from the beginning. Watch this. Boom! Broke 5 ribs. And Chance Rencounter is a famously tough guy, like really rugged, tough dude. And he just caught him perfect with that kick to the body. And if you go to the Bellator, Instagram page, it shows you his ribs.
Oof.
Because they did an X-ray on his ribs, and it's.
Have you ever had a broken rib?
Yeah, I've had broken ribs.
Nightmare.
It's not fun. But he has
for a comedian. You like to laugh?
Yeah, well, this is
Jesus.
before I was a comedian, luckily, but it's still not fun.
Not fun.
He has 5 shattered ribs, just cracked. His lung filled up with blood. Yeah, one of his kidneys is fucked up. Like
Jesus.
that's how hard that kick was, and it was just perfectly placed. But that's a Taekwondo kick, and like in the early days of UFC, people thought, well, that stuff's all useless. You can't do that anymore. You got to learn jiu-jitsu. But it turns out that if you know how to, like, if you look at that, look at the impact. Jesus Christ, that's the perfect landed kick because it's on the side of the body.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like full heel, digging into the ribs. Instant knockout, and then go click on that right. Oh, that just shows you and then I think there's maybe it's on his page. If you go to Chase's page.
That poor guy, you look at him and he's just done. That's it. Impact.
Chance. I say Chance rent counter. Yeah, I say Chase, sorry. If you go to Chance's page, it'll show you the that's it right there, Black Eagle 170. Go there, click that, and then go right, and you can see the ribs. Look at that.
Wow.
Bro, 5 ribs shattered with one kick. I mean, that's horrific.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy. Look what it says in his description. And he's like literally one of the toughest guys I've ever seen fight. He said, no way I'd envisioned my Bellator return playing out this way. Congratulations to Korshkov. He said, look at this. Feeling pretty chipper for a man with 5 broken ribs, a punctured lung, half full of blood, and a bruised kidney. Woo.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a kick.
Thank God you're a chef. Right? Thank God I just talk shit for a living.
I just, I love spending time in the gym. And I love getting to be part of that like training camp when the guys are getting ready for these fights and seeing them and getting to work with professional. Like no other sport in the world, you get to work as an amateur.
Right.
You never, no other sport in the world could I be like, oh, I'm thinking about playing a little basketball. Let me just like hop on with the Knicks and help them out with their training camp. But going down to that basement in New York and being part of, the training camp for these guys and. Was an extraordinary experience. And,
yeah, it's amazing, right?
And then not having to go in the ring was the second. Was the next extraordinary. Yeah, I would.
Where
never
do you train now?
So I'm training. There's a place called Street Sports.
Oh, Hanato Magno.
Hanato Magno, who is one of the nice guys. So he's
the
gave me my
best.
blue belt.
Oh, no kidding.
I went from Half. I went down there, and I've been splitting my time. There's the old Cron Gracie team. Cron took off, but their team.
He went to Montana.
He went to Montana. He was out. But his team started this Gracie Originals gym. And I think that Hanato Magno at Street Sports has this guy Adam is one of the best jiu-jitsu teachers I've ever worked with. He's an incredible teacher. He's a great practitioner, but he really can teach. And I love training with him. And then the Gracie Original guys are right around the corner from my house, man. They just like open a gym, and that's everything, right?
That whole area is a great area for jiu-jitsu anyway. Yeah. There's so much that the whole by the beach because so many of those guys like to surf too.
I tried to go into the what's the name of the no-gi guys down there, and I tried to get in there, and they weren't nice to me. It was during COVID. People freaked out during COVID, man.
What's the no-gi place?
What's the name? Eddie.
10th Planet.
10th Planet, and
they weren't nice to you.
I was like, yo, man, I got a black belt from Henzo. I'd love to come in and just check it out. They're like, yeah, you can't.
Well, that was because they literally weren't open.
Yeah, they weren't open, but they were open, so they were like really cagey.
Well, they were worried about people, setting them up.
Closing it out.
But they're very friendly, and if you ever want to train there, just let me know.
Well, it's right by my office, and I'd love to train no-gi there because I'm having a hard time finding. I was. I
trained there too. That I have black belt under Eddie.
That's what I would, and he's there. He's there teaching
all
those classes. So
all the time.
Like
I'll
getting
connect you guys.
I would love that.
I'll connect you. Yeah, 100%.
And then I went up a couple times to that Gracie Baja Northridge, which is
how was that?
Incredible academy, man.
Yeah, nice.
Those like all the guys come through there during their training camp for the Pan Ams or whatever. And they're
what a connection of gyms.
Oh my God.
Gracie Baja has. I mean, they're all over the world. All over. It's an amazing talent pool.
There was there's an old guy, Gene LaBelle. You know Gene LaBelle.
Sure, no Gene very. He's been on the podcast.
I trained. He used to teach a class at this Gokel.
Highest time.
Yeah. And I trained there a couple times. That guy, he did he did like a fingers under the pectoral, like nipple twist, sweep the leg, Johnny, on me. That was one of the most. He was 83 years old, and he put me on my ass. I was like 22 years old. I've never.
You can't let him do a technique on you. He
Well, that was his favorite thing to be
Gene
like.
loves to give out pain.
He's like, I'm going to teach the class this move. I need somebody to step up. I was like, oh, I get to train with Gene LaBelle. And he was just like, I'm going to.
Gene told me a funny
smack
story on the podcast of some young guys trying to break into his car. And, he was like, at the time, he was like 60 years old. And they're like, get the fuck out of here, old man. He's like, oh, okay. Somebody wants to go for a ride. He was an amazing guy. When he was in his prime, there's a very famous match. He was one of the very first mixed martial arts matches. I don't know if you know that. He actually had a mixed martial arts match against a boxer. And when he was a national judo champion. So he had his judo gi on, and he had like a mixed rules fight with a boxer.
How'd it go?
He strangled him, put him to sleep. Yeah.
My
But
big
you could watch
brother-
it on YouTube. It's pretty interesting.
My big brother has his brown belt under Hanato, who's like the
nice.
nicest guy in the world. Hanato's a wonderful man. and a
Yeah, I
great
started
teacher.
training with Hanato in the late 90s at John Jock Machado's.
I one time I got to train with John Jock, and he was very nice to me, but he put me to sleep.
Oh, yeah, he's the best, man.
He put me to sleep. He had this red belt on. He's like 100 years old, and I was like, he just beat the shit out
No,
of me.
he's in incredible shape. He's one of the rare guys that I've known. I've known him since I think I met Jean-Jacques in '98, and he has really, from all this time, never really been injured, and never really been out of shape, and trained so controlled and so relaxed, and just everything is perfect position. He's an amazing guy to learn from. Because his knowledge is so deep. It's like from the roots of jiu-jitsu from the early days, but also like continuing to train. He's never stopped training. A lot of the older guys, they get injured, but he's been really meticulous about his physical training and his diet and being healthy, and also the way he trains. He's not a guy who explodes. Everything is slow and smooth and technical. It's very, very inspirational.
I feel like there's at a certain point, I guess you lose the ego. Although Half he'll punch you right in the face.
He's a savage.
He's like,
Half is a known savage.
That was.
Didn't he just
great.
go to jail recently for
he
beating
was
somebody
like
up?
punching someone right in the face. Like he was like, "Oh, you got the cameras on? I'll never punch you." He's like, and they had the Thundercat. I was trying to make. He was like the Thundercats logo on his like gangland. I don't know. It's a whole story. It's the whole story. Brazilian gang.
Listen, man. Thank you for being here. It was fucking 3 hours already.
Was that actually 3 hours?
Yeah. It's 4 o'clock. Isn't that crazy?
I would talk to you forever, man.
I know. We
This
could
is
do this
great.
again. Let's do it again.
I love you for this.
I love you for this.
Hey, I'm so sorry. I got to say this.
What's
my
up?
my buddy John Bush is a big fan. He met you once. He's a jiu-jitsu guy, and
Tell him I said what's up.
And I got to just shout him out because
Shout out to John Bush.
John Bush
What's
is
up,
my
John
boy.
Bush? This is the website for your book. It's called foodiq.co. The book's available right now. I got it in my hands. Is there an audio as well?
there's no audio.
Yeah, you can't really have an audio for a book like this. You need the images and everything. But it's very beautiful. There's a lot of very cool images in it. It's very thorough. And I fucking love cooking, and I love talking to you, man. So thank you very much for coming in here. Good luck with the book and everything else. And next time I'm in LA, I'm going to eat your pizza.
I'd like to cook some meat with
All
you.
right,
I love
let's
it.
do it. Let's
Thanks,
do it. Thanks, brother. All right, bye, everybody.